Legendary block fly, baby. That's gonna be very interesting way to start this stream, huh? Very curious, one might say. I should probably share this stream. Prop apps. Hello, Dank Memer, what's up? If you would, allow me just a moment to do the old share-a-roos and whatnot. No, I don't want to click on it. Boom, 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 boom. We finally doing it. I've been asked, like, several times to cover this. It's very interesting. Streaming. Bum, 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 bum. And finally, I self-promote. What a great shit show. I take it that means you did not care for the show. A new profile picture. Also, I might look into a new job, not gonna lie. Not very happy with one I'm at the moment. I know how it be. I know how shitty jobs be. Believe you me. I guess I'm just gonna wait a little bit for people to join in. But until then, I guess I can give my thoughts on the show. Granted, it has been a few weeks now. Actually, a couple. I don't know. Whenever the show first came out was when I watched it. Um, Not even that long afterwards. But I enjoyed the show for the most part. I thought it was pretty good. I think it had some decent character writing. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you I think it's like incredible, but I don't think it's nearly as bad as some people are saying. And I think some of the, um, let's call it the picking out of plot holes pertaining to other Fallout games is a bit overblown. But I also say that as someone who hasn't played every Fallout game, so I completely understand that there might be some things I'm just missing proper context on. I still can't understand why people were acting like it was the second coming of Jesus. I mean, as far as video game adaptations go, I thought it was pretty good. Um, there were definitely not even episodes, but there were definitely scenes where I was like, all right, this presents some issues. And there were a couple of episodes that I thought were pretty stinky, to be perfectly honest. But I'm sure that stuff will come up because, I mean, this video is 2.5 hours long. So naturally, I imagine that every problem I have and perhaps problems I will come to have will come up throughout this video. MauLer tends to be pretty thorough in his analyses. I haven't watched Fallout or really care about Fallout besides New Vegas, but this is going to be funny. I would recommend it. I started playing the first Fallout not too long ago, and I've played a bit of Fallout 2. I still haven't beaten either. I'm planning on getting around to that. Take the Fallout adaptation problems out of it, and the many stupid shallow things still happen. I guess we will find out. I mean, I can think of like right off the bat, this frame that he's opening on. He's gonna show. I imagine he's gonna show a clip of when the doctor, whose name I cannot remember because, like I said, it's been a little while since I've watched the show. But I imagine he's going to show the scene where the doctor is just like running and not being killed by the turret. To which I would say, yeah, that scene's pretty fucking stupid. I also think, thinking on certain problems I have with the show, I think those stem more from production issues, which I'll get into. For the most part, from what I understand, the show's production went pretty swimmingly, but when I say production issues, I'm simply referring to um there was some form of miscommunication or misunderstanding that happened one way or another. We'll get into that as it comes up though. But yeah, overall, I mean, I thought the show was pretty good. I give it a thumbs up. That was pretty good. I liked the characters for the most part. The only character I really didn't care for was Maximus. I didn't hate him, but I wasn't sold on him either. I was like, I don't know what his deal is. Um, I was having a really hard time understanding his motivations, I'll say. But I think they started to do all right towards the end of the show with his relationship with Lucy, who I would consider a pretty good character. And obviously, as to the surprise of no one, I think the ghoul, Cooper Howard, is the best character in the show by far. No, Doodoo Baby doesn't show up in the Fallout show. Brian Cage, he was invited, but he just shit his pants, and the production was like, Todd Howard was like, oh, I don't want that guy. Also, you'll have to let me know how the volume is, because I've not, every time I've recorded or streamed me watching a video, it's been through Watch Together, so I genuinely have no idea what the volume is going to be like on this thing, so I'm going to be relying on chat a little bit for this first little bit. How's that in terms of volume? I mean, I know it's not him talking, but, you know, MauLer does a pretty good job equalizing his volume, at least from what I can recall, so. Volume level is fine with sliding video at max, it's good. Alright, cool. But yeah, going over this scene real quick, yeah, I thought this scene was dumb. I don't know, there's a lot of ways you can do someone who's not adept with combat getting out of like a military base or something like that. I feel like the show or this scene or this episode, whatever you want to say, they kind of did the Godzilla King of the Monsters thing, where it's like, how the fuck did this little girl just escape this like top secret international terrorists headquarters? You know? Oh geez, MauLer always with the hot of takes. I don't know if this is really a hot take. I feel like, I don't know, like uh, the people are pretty divided on this show from what I can tell. Like I said, I personally enjoyed it, but I can definitely see a lot of places where people wouldn't. Also, I just realized I have not set this stream to be monetizable. Let me fix that real quick. Let me just do this little thing real quick. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, boom. Boom, 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 boom. Moneticisms. They're on. Alright, cool. I want to be able to make money off my content, you know? But yeah. GX is up. And yeehaw, let's go.
Creating satirical storytelling based on a video game does not mean you can write anything and be praised for it. We are not doing the Space Wizards thing on this channel, okay? Even he ended up regretting saying that.
I fully agree, and I think that's a really strong way to open the video. It sets a precedent for ultimately what his point's going to be, and that just because Fallout has elements of satire, that doesn't mean they can just do whatever they want. And I think that's a really strong opening. I think that's a really great way to frame what I'm sure will be the majority of his points throughout the video. I'm curious to see how well it holds up throughout. So yeah. Your Fallout New Vegas DLC review is really good, by the way. I threw it on while I was working, and you made the day go by a lot faster. Thank you. I'm really glad to hear that. That's pretty much the goal of my content, because I used to work a lot of third shifts, and I also used to play a lot of games where I'd like to have things on in the background. So, which, you know, obviously is how I came to be familiar with MauLer, because I like having the long content that I don't have to constantly, you know, jump between shorter videos while I'm trying to do other things. I won't get too much into my job, but I was in an area of my job that I was great, but I got moved to a new aspect I not only hated but management. I'm sorry to hear that.
The point being, the deft hand in which you can weave substantive.
Is that Donnie Darko? I've never seen Donnie Darko. I know about the rabbit image thing. I could be totally off. That could be something completely different. But anywho, I'll your Ulysses analysis was the most balanced I've ever seen. Oh, I'm glad to hear that. Thank you. Yeah, Ulysses is a really interesting character. I like him overall, but I totally see where people have issues with him. He tends to be really long-winded and obtuse.
He ended up regretting saying that. The point being, the deft hand in which you can weave substantive allegory, caricature, and poignant explorations of insane patterns or mundane cruelty in life is something we should ask nothing but the best for. Satire can be one of the most powerful instruments to effect change in one's mind, or one of the most embarrassing ways to reveal your own naive perspective. Now, I'm not a man who demands.
So, on the topic of satire, I think satire is really complicated. It's very, I don't even want to say subjective. It's very vague. Like, you can Google a definition of satire, but even it won't really tell you what satire is such a weird, I don't want to say subgenre. It's just such a weird realm of writing. And I feel like the amount you can get away with when using satire, I don't know. I question how subjective that is, given the nature of the beast. I'm sure he'll go more in depth with it, but yeah, I just like right off the bat, I have a hard time. Like I've always really struggled with understanding what makes objectively good satire for me personally. Satire can range from Watchmen to American Beauty, incredibly diverse. Absolutely. To give an example of a show that is extremely satirical, but I know Mahler doesn't like, The Boys. I'm a little over halfway through season two. I just saw the episode where, minor spoiler, no one gives a shit about Homelander and Stormfront do the nasty, and I'm very mixed on it. I don't even know if I'm mixed on it. I really like the show overall, but I definitely think there are some ways that it could handle some of its satirical theming a little bit better. But I'm also nowhere near done with the show, let alone season two. So, yeah. But I thought the first season was pretty strong overall. The Boys falls into ineffective satire past season one. Yeah, I get that. Yeah, season two for me has been very plotting so far. Like, I don't really know. I'm not sure what the direction they're going is. I would personally class satire as almost spite for certain ideas, whereas parody is loving mockery. Yeah, that's really good. That's a really good way of distinguishing the two. I think the issue with satire is you're trying to you're essentially trying to make a mockery of something, right? Or at the very least you're trying to use a caricature of it to get across your theme. So that then calls into question how illogical can you make it? Because no matter what, satire is always going to have some realm of. I mean, all stories are going to have some realm of illogical, of an illogical nature to them. But obviously, a goal as a storyteller is to make a story as grounded as possible to the point where people can understand and grasp it and become immersed in it. So yeah, satire is a really weird. I don't know. I don't even know how I would describe it. It's just really fucking weird. That's the other issue. They don't know where they're going either. Oh, with season two of The Boys, yeah, I could see that. They're doing so much setup. Like not seven. I'm 6 episodes in, and it's just been so much fucking setup. Which season one was that also, but you could tell where they were going pretty much from the get go. The Boys is satire, whereas Deadpool or Megamind is parody. Yeah, for sure.
realism for all these stories and reveal your own naive perspective. Now, I'm not a man who demands realism for all these stories, nor cartoonish craziness for all of them either. I demand internal consistency. All that matters is what the story tells me matters.
I think that's a pretty good way of framing it. The issue with, again, with going with satire is with internal consistency specifically, like, there's always going to be some point where looking through cause and effect and looking through how one thing feeds into another, no matter how far back you go, there's going to be some point in the story where you go, this does not make sense. And I'm not necessarily using that as a defense, because if you have to go, like, to these extreme fucking depths of thinking just to be like, okay, there's a problem with the story, then yeah, it doesn't, like, who fucking cares, right? But if something, I think when something is, like, glaringly obvious, like, what would be a really good example? I'm kind of drawing a blank. But if there's just something that obviously does not make sense or completely contradicts pre-established canon, then yeah, obviously that can fall under scrutiny.
Regardless of all that,
Satire could still hypothetically highlight what's admirable about a subject it's mocking. Yeah, absolutely. I think parody tends to be done more so as a loving gesture, as Dank Memer put it, whereas satire is like, we're deliberately making fun of this. Like, I think probably one of the best cases of satire there is Austin Powers. Like, unironically, Austin Powers is fucking amazing. It does such a good job of ripping into James Bond while also showing a certain degree of admiration for James Bond.
let's have a chat about the new Fallout show. Bud has an idea for 3 interconnected vaults. Buds, because the basic obstacle to achievement has been the brevity of the human lifespan. It's prevented us from working on projects that take us entire millenniums into the future. Buds will solve that. So, we have Vault 31 releases junior executives periodically when they've been unfrozen to become overseers in Vaults 32 and 33. Through many generations, the plan is to end up having a society of super managers, because the junior executives have been taught how to be managers, and they're going to teach everyone else how to be managers. Everyone's going to be managers. It's going
I don't know if that's the most accurate assessment of what Bud's plan was, because Bud's plan was essentially to, going along with the idea that, they're using capitalism essentially to ruin the world. It's the from ashes thing, right? It's like the Phoenix. They plan to rebuild from the ground up in a way that gives them the higher, the 1%, we'll say, total dominion, basically. So, I don't know, the whole thing about, like, super managers, I don't know if that feels almost like it's caricaturizing it, which I know is ironic because we're talking about satire, right? And I'm pretty sure there even is a line where Bud says something to the effect of, like, talking about having managers for managers and so on. But I feel like that's one of those kind of, and, I'd have to go back and watch to get, like, an exact quote, obviously, but I feel like that's one of those tongue-in-cheek, more on-the-nose instances of dialogue versus, like, pragmatically and realistically speaking, their plan is to essentially set everyone who's not in the 1% back to zero, whereas the 1% will still have their power and they can shape the future of society as they see fit. Like, that's the gist of it.
to be amazing. People who are good at management will create the best society. That's what Buds is all about. Once everyone on the surface is dead, the super managers will emerge and create a great society. Until then, Vaults 32 and 33 will exchange people periodically to ensure population growth. Which means what? Vault 32 and 33 are just people to be controlled? To be bred to create super managers? Well, Vault 33 is okay, but 32 is filled with people strangling each other. Oh gosh, they're all dying. There's blood on the walls.
So I don't know where exactly he's going with this, but I would simply say, yeah, that's kind of the point. They have this big plan for trying to control essentially society itself by replanting it, planting new crops, wiping the slate clean, so on and so forth. But, to pull a very left field reference, life finds a way. You can't predict everything, and that's kind of the whole point, at least from what I surmise. So Watchmen fails at being satire because it justifies the role of fantasy and people. Wait, what? Oh, you're talking with Dang Memer. Okay, I was like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Jesus. But 32 was not overpopulated, not like the Rat Utopia experiments playing on the video inside the vault. Instead, they discovered the truth and went mad. They killed themselves and each other, and they tried to get into Vault 31. But how did Vault 32 discover the truth? And why would discovering the truth, that instead of a vault in which you're meant to be kept safe and secure, you are being trained to become a super manager that will take over civilization at some point? Why is that? Like, why would that be the thing that makes you want to kill yourself? Like,
Uh, I don't know if it's that simple. And to be fair, that's because we don't actually see what, like, we see the results of what happened. Everybody fucking dies, right? But we don't see how the people actually responded. I don't, because, like, there's so many possible ways that any one person could react to having been told, hey, your life has been essentially shaped multiple hundreds of years prior to you even existing, right? I don't know, any person could react any number of ways to that kind of information. They could start to see the holes in it and be like, oh, fuck, this is an extremely flawed plan. There's no way it's going to succeed. There could be people who were aspiring to be the number one in that number one, top 1%, essentially. And so they try to seize power. I don't know, like, there's so many different kinds of reactions any person could have. I feel like that's kind of the point, is that, holy shit, these people just found out their lives have been essentially shaped 200 years prior to them even being a fucking sperm cell, right? So, I mean, I don't fully know, I'm pausing, obviously. I don't know exactly where he's going with this, but at its face, yeah, I would say it makes sense. Um, I don't know, I'm questioning more so what is satire, TBH, because I'm kind of just working on my basic assumption of satire and parody. Okay, y'all are having your own conversation.
yes, you've been lied to, but ultimately you're still in the exact same situation, only now you know that you're meant to take over. Like, this is a Vault Tech personal project. They're guinea pigs, sure, but they're very well kept guinea pigs.
Oh my god, no. That was not as good of a point as you thought it was, Mahler. I'm gonna be real with you, dog. Could you fucking imagine telling someone who, like, just found out, like, every aspect of their life was essentially pre-planned before they were even born, and that they were gonna have a role in this super doctored society with no control of what their position in that society was gonna be, telling them, yeah, well, at least you're being taken care of. It's like, well, it's like, yeah, but you're not really grasping what it is that's bothering me about this. I don't, like, come on. That was, yeah, I feel like that's a really, really weak point. Like, oof. I'm not, eh. I feel like that's gonna be one of the weaker points of the video. That's a really, oh god. There's so many things wrong with that. Like, I mean, just apply that to the real world, right? Like, not to get too heavy into, you know, social issues, but imagine telling any oppressed group, like, yeah, you're having to deal with gentrification and people way higher up beyond you that don't even know you exist, controlling every aspect of your life through their own decisions. But hey, you know, you got food on your table. It's like, well, that you're not really doesn't really address the issue that I have. Yeah, I feel like that's going to be one of the weaker points of the video for sure. I would hope. I would hope it doesn't get worse, because if it did, that would be really, really bad. I'd be pissed off if that were the case, not gonna lie. Yeah, like, there's so, like, who the fuck could possibly calculate, even just, in these vaults, they have populations of, what, like a couple of hundred each? So between vaults 31, 32, and 33, somewhere around 1,000, probably a little bit more, just, given how many people you need to sustain a viable population. Um, Maybe a couple thousand even, before the people in, what was it, 32 killed themselves. Uh, like, there's so many reactions that any one individual could have, and that's kind of the point, is that individualism makes trying to control society to this extent, it's so beyond the scope of what any one person is capable of, let alone idiots like Bud. Because, like, Bud, he's essentially the biggest parody of the top 1%, right? Like, he's super rich, super wealthy, super influential, but he's a fucking moron. That's where the element of satire comes in. And it's not totally unbelievable either, because I've met plenty of wealthy people who are not that intelligent. So yeah, like, this is I feel like this point is just completely missing, and I think it's just oversimplifying. I don't want to call it reductionism. I don't think he's doing it like on purpose. I think he just missed the point entirely.
However, if we pop our thinking caps on, perhaps Bud decided that the crop of super managers in 32 was so much less effective than those in 33 that he culled them. He forced all their food sources to die out, hoping to then, as we see in the show, split 33, the good crop, into halves and repopulate 32. But
I guess that is a possibility. Sure, let's see where he goes with it. MauLer's video on the Predator is so funny and great, and I respect the hell out of him for standing up for neurodiverse people when the Predator was insulting us. Yeah, I think his video on the Predator is really good. And I say that as someone who, even at their worst, I actually still enjoy pretty much every Predator movie to some extent, except for the Predator. The Predator is really bad. I think there's like one scene of like when it's in the lab and it breaks out, I'm like, that was kind of cool, I guess. That's like the most praise I'll give it. And Alien vs. Predator Requiem, that movie is fucking awful. That movie sucks.
that doesn't really explain why they killed each other or themselves, nor why they wouldn't have asked for help from 33 during all of this hardship.
I mean, I don't know, like, as far as a direct explanation for why anyone did anything, you would have to go to the source, you would have to go to the person, and we can't do that because unless we get, like, a flashback episode in the future or something about the Vault that killed themselves. I'm getting my dyscalculia is fucking me up with these numbers. But yeah, I feel like there's just no way of knowing without, and for all we know, like, they could have like a flashback episode plan where they go over it, and it itself could be full of errors, plot holes, contrivances, anything like that. It's just I can't really say because we don't see it.
We see how easy it is to get into an overseer's account. How come they didn't try to open the Vault 33 door out of desperation when they were willing to try it with 31? If they know, then they should know there's only easy it is populate 32. But that doesn't really explain why they killed each other or themselves, nor why they wouldn't have asked for help from 33 during all of this hardship. We see how easy it is to get into an overseer's account. How come they didn't try to open...
Well, I mean, the reason they didn't help 33 could be any number of things. Like, it depends on what the overseer did, to try and quell the rioting that was certainly happening. Whether or not the people who wanted to get out could even do so in the first place. Whether or not they even wanted help. Whether or not they even wanted to inform anyone else that this was going on. Like, again, there's so much potential as to why any one person did anything, and the Vault has a few hundred people, if I remember correctly. So, yeah, I don't know.
Open the Vault 33 door out of desperation when they were willing to try it with 31. If they know, then they should know there's only cryotubes in there. 33 has food and water and people who are willing to help. But ultimately, why wouldn't they open their front vault door to the wasteland when we know they are perfectly capable of doing so, since Moldaver does it 2 years later from the...
Why would they not open their vault to the wasteland? So, MauLer, my guy, why would someone not open their massive steel, ultra protecting door to a post-apocalyptic hellscape? My guy, did you really just ask that? Um, and even realistic, like again, looking back to the whole "your lives have basically been crafted before you were even born" thing. Um, how do it gets people in their own heads? How do they know that their reaction to finding this out isn't something that was also pre-planned by the people who made the scenario in the first place? Like, this is the kind of shit that can drive a person completely insane. And again, just like why wouldn't they open their door to the post-apocalyptic hellscape? Well, gee golly gosh, who knows, right?
outside, and Lucy does it in her own vault. Hell, we find out Rose did it without Bud or Hank's
Wait, hold on.
permission, without Wasteland, when we know they are perfectly capable of doing so, since Moldaver does it 2 years later from the outside, and Lucy does it in her own vault. Hell, we find out Rose did it without Bud or Hank's permission, with Hank to follow her. Bud is apparently incapable of stopping.
So I'll tackle the thing with Rose later. Dank Memer said, I actually do have a question about these about how. Okay, sorry, dyslexia. I actually do have a question. How would these higher ups plan everything? I mean, it's how you plan out any experiment. You know, like to simplify it. You know, you're putting the rats in the maze. You design the maze and you design what rewards are at each point. Obviously, you know, directing human lives, especially at this scale, is a much more complex thing. But you know, at its simplest, that is what they're doing. They create the vault, they create the conditions that it exists in, they create the rules that they have to follow, so on and so forth. Your lives have been crafted before you were born. Let's kill ourselves instead of doing anything about it. How do they know that anything they do isn't going to be something that was pre-planned, though? How do they not question literally every decision they make following that information? Like, it's like a predestination thing, right? And like, what is free will to a point? Like, it's the kind of thing that can make a person go insane if they think about it too much. Like the new avatar. Hey, thanks, Alfonso. Also, welcome to the stream.
Any of that. And so you want me to buy that not a single person in Vault 32 was willing to brave the outside instead of starving to death? They must have.
I could totally buy that any person in Vault 32 was willing to do that. Whether or not they were able is a whole other thing. You know, he's got the picture of the Overseer right here. The Overseer, I think they killed themselves, if I'm not mistaken. Or they were killed. But either way, the Overseer being the person who decides whether or not the vault gets opened, or determines whether, decides from their computer whether or not anyone's allowed to. You know, that kind of decision was ultimately on them. And also, you don't know whether the vault security was willing to let people leave. I mean, we see in Vault 33 that there are people in the vault who are like, no, like even after they find out, I'm pretty sure they're like, no, we're not going outside. You're fucking insane. Don't do that. So I would just imagine that it would be the people who wanted to were prevented from doing it. Or maybe they did escape and the door was like, we don't know. The corporation isn't God loveless. That's not a remotely sensible reason for anyone to give up or go insane. I mean, that's your own determination, but also you have to remember that not everyone in the vault killed themselves. There was fighting. Like, so much happened that we didn't see, and so much violence happened between people, not just, you know, it wasn't just everyone collectively made like a suicide pact or anything. It was just the revelation of that information caused the fall of the vault, we'll say. But you know, do we know if anyone got out? Do we know if anyone possibly survived? Like, we don't really know. Again, without seeing the fall for ourselves in some kind of future flashback episode or something like that, or possibly just meeting a character who was like, "Oh yeah, I was there. Shit got fucking wild." If the response to every question of plausibility is we don't know what makes the story interesting or well fleshed out, well, it's not the whole story. It's just talking about a single event pertaining to the story within a single season of a TV show. We don't know. And that's just, I mean, that's the simple fact of the matter. We don't know. We don't know everything that happened. We see Obviously, examples of people that killed themselves, people that fought each other and killed each other. We can, like, if we wanted to pick it apart frame by frame, we could do that, but I, I'm gonna be honest, Chef, I'm not gonna do that. If someone else wants to, they can, they can be my guest, but yeah. Story within a story event, fine. I mean, yeah. Obviously, it has its significance. Like, this is a very big event that happens in the story, but I feel like half of the effect that comes from that event existing is the fact that we don't know.
I've had very specific and strange knowledge to make all of this fit, but I still really don't know how. What did you know, motherfuckers? Did you find out that Vault Tech blew up the world? Because, I mean, I don't see how they could possibly have found that out, but I also don't know why that would make them kill themselves. You know how
I'm pretty sure what they found out was just that their lives were an experiment, essentially. How they found that out, I don't remember. And that one's on me. I genuinely just don't remember. I don't know if it was mentioned or not. It might have been, but as far as like how they found out, yeah, I don't remember. I don't know. Dark Souls, this is not. Oh God, don't get me started on the writing of Dark Souls. I'm with I don't know if you've seen MauLer's Dark Souls 2 H Bomber guy response, but he talks a lot about how the story is basically littered with gaping plot holes, and I completely agree with him, and I say that as someone who loves Dark Souls. I'll watch the Fallout show at some point, but I only have some knowledge of New Vegas. Is there anything I need to know before watching? Uh, I mean, any amount of knowledge would help from playing the other games, but I think the biggest thing to bear in mind coming away from New Vegas is just that the NCR has obviously a presence well beyond New Vegas. In fact, their presence in Vegas is pretty weak. They have to use the long 15 to get from California all the way to through Nevada. Not even through Nevada, but through Nevada to Vegas. So yeah. No, because they don't care about one or two. I mean, I feel like Fallout 1 and 2 play a pretty decent role in the Fallout show. Um, but I feel like the show covers its bases on what it's referring to. Like they talk about the NCR a little bit. Anyone who's played New Vegas is going to know about the NCR, of course. I don't know. I feel like I'd have to go back through the show to really be able to answer like what all you need to know from each prior game. Uh, I mean, bear in mind, my fiance watched it with me, and she came away from the show really enjoying it, and she'd only seen me play New Vegas in 4, so yeah, take that as you will, I guess.
However they found out, they don't even have proof. They never got Vault 31 open. How do they know what happened? And you know what? If they have an equal exchange rate,
Wait, hold on, what?
possibly have found that out, but I also don't know why that would make them kill themselves. You know, however they found out, they don't even have proof. They never got Vault 31 open. How do they know what happened?
Hey man, stopping in to see how it's going. Hey, what's up, Psychonautic? If you want to join in, just let me know, and I'll start the Discord call. How did they find, or how did they? So okay, the whole proof thing. How did they know, right? I mean the vault. What would be the word? Database, I guess. The Vault-Tec database is like the only source of information and the only external learning source they have. So if they can either take what they've found out, that being that I assume that their lives have been shaped and that they're all one big experiment, and they can take it as truth, or they can take it as something that's intentionally misleading them and thus question literally everything they've learned. That is such a can of worms, man. I don't want to get into that. The Dark Souls comment wasn't directed towards the overall plot, but environmental storytelling. That's fair. Yeah, Dark Souls. Its environmental storytelling is kind of mixed, but yeah, I feel that. Not sure if I'll be able to. I'll let you know if I can, though. For now, I'll lurk while I can through. Yeah, right on, man.
And you know what? If they have an equal exchange rate of people from Vaults 31, 32, and 33, then why wouldn't they have questioned, when they have referenced the fact that they know people come from Vault 31, that no one goes to Vault 31? This all becomes super retarded when you...
So yeah, I will agree that I think one of the issues that the show didn't really account for was the fact that, oh, there's supposed to be an exchange rate, and it happens, oh, when does it happen? I want to say it's like once a year or something like that, because they have like a day for it, right? Um, and I guess it calls into question, when did Vault 31 or 32, sorry, numbers are fucking me up. When did they, you know, go down the shitter, essentially? It's hard to say, but the corpses are also very rotted, so I don't know. Is the show canon to the games? Kind of like how... Okay, so yes and no. Let me explain that. So, yes, it is retroactively canon to the games because the show's events don't need to happen for the games to happen. The games just need to happen so the show can happen. Kind of like The Last of Us 1 and 2, right? Last of Us 1 was written before Last of Us 2, therefore Last of Us 2 is not canon to The Last of Us 1, whereas The Last of Us 2 was written as a sequel to The Last of Us 1, therefore The Last of Us 1 has to be canon to The Last of Us 2, even though The Last of Us 2 makes no fucking sense. So, yeah, I know that's a very fucking weird answer, but I look at canon in a very specific way, so I'm kind of anal about it. They say triannually, so probably once every 3 years. I doubt they mean 3 times per year. Yeah, I feel like 3 times per year would... That would be such a... I don't know, that would fuck with the culture of their vaults so much. Like, as little culture as there, essentially is. Um, Exchanging so many people so many times per year would just... Yeah, I don't know how... That doesn't feel very feasible. Especially just for maintaining... workloads and things like that, very practical necessities. Don't take this the wrong way, I'm a little confused. So, okay, let me put it this way. The Fallout TV show, it is a part of the Fallout canon and will likely be relevant in future entries. But if you wanted to play one of the games, which came out prior to the show, you wouldn't have to worry about the show because everything that happens in the show essentially happens after all the games. So, in that regard, the show is not canon to the games, but the games are canon to the show, and the show is canon to future games. Does that make sense? Hopefully I'm not, I'm not trying to like word salad this. I have a very specific approach to canon.
come from Vault 31 that no one may have questioned when they have referenced the fact that they know people come from Vault 31, that no one goes to Vault 31. This all becomes super retarded when you take into consideration that they start up a saying for voting in Vault 31ers for the best results. Doesn't that highlight this very strange coincidence? As if they want to make it further suspicious, they apparently tell all of the super managers from 31 to talk about how good the fucking potatoes are. How are you gonna tell me anyone believes this shit? How are you gonna tell me that there are any stakes in the investigation?
The bag of tricks.
Yeah, I feel like with Vault 31 specifically, there was just... It's weird, right? Because obviously we stick with Vault 33 for the majority of the show. We see what happens to Vault 32, but Vault 31 is just kind of left by the wayside. Like, it's really not talked about that much other than these occasional references, like MauLer mentioned, to, oh, they grow great potatoes and they have such great workers and things like that. But yeah, if we're going off the triannual thing where it happens once every 3 years, which it has to be the assumption, right? I could see that within the past couple of years, Vault 31 well, 32 and I guess 31, they had their downfall moments. Think of the show as the last building blocking the mechanic. The show relies on the rest of the canon to prop it up, but the rest of the canon doesn't. Yeah, it's the end of the choo-choo train. It's not the start of the choo-choo train. If that, for a very simple analogy.
from comedy can be useful.
Stakes in the investigation.
The bag of tricks from comedy can be useful. You know, where instead of having people be awesome, why not have them be dumb?
If the answer to this is everyone's retarded, then why isn't Lucy's brother retarded? And if they are...
I feel like, what was the question he was even being asked? I don't know the context of his answer. Like, I don't know what he's referring to specifically. Like, if he's just saying, I don't know, in general, you can make some characters dumb. Yeah, you can make some characters dumb. That's not... I don't think that's specifically... Again, I don't know what the question was, but I'm assuming that's not a specific answer to the issues that MauLer's bringing up with the... with them referencing things like Vault 31. I don't... Yeah, I don't know. I would need to see that whole clip in context to really... I don't know what MauLer's getting at with that.
are sending people to Vault 31 and they just get dealt with, who's dealing with them?
Have them be dumb.
If the answer to this is everyone's retarded, then why isn't Lucy's brother retarded? And if they are sending people to Vault 31 and they just get dealt with, who's dealing with them? The fucking brain bot? He's not doing shit. So even if people were periodically sent to Vault 31, bud braining.
I just realized I'm a fucking idiot. I was thinking about Vault 31 as its own vault and the cryo chamber as like a subsection between the vaults. Again, it's been a little while since I watched the show. I completely blanked on that. That's my bad. In that case, yes, I think. Yeah, I don't really know how there really is no explanation for, like, you know, what's with all this about Vault 31 workers having a great work ethic and yummy potatoes and all that shit. Yeah, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But I also wouldn't put too much stock into it because they're throwaway lines, which, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying these aren't errors in writing, they absolutely are. But like a couple throwaway lines about Vault 31, you know, I don't put too much stock into it myself.
Killing him, so I don't understand. How did people not figure out something weird was going on? Why did it take Grimby? He's Grimby, don't fight this. So Moldaver wants to take her raiders into Vault 33 via Vault 32 with the Pip-Boy from Rose. Considering their wacky approach, why didn't they just go straight into 33? They were willing to raid Vault 32, so why not just raid Vault 33? And then how insanely...
Hold on, I need to hear that again.
Something weird was going on. Why did it take Grimby? He's Grimby, don't fight this. So Moldaver wants to take her raiders into Vault 33 via Vault 32 with the Pip-Boy from Rose. Considering their wacky approach, why didn't they just go straight into 33? They were willing to raid Vault 32, so why not just raid Vault 33? And then how insanely lucky is it that everyone's already killed each other ages ago in Vault 32, meaning they have every opportunity to simply take over and pretend to be Vault 32. But then why was everything untouched and unlived in Vault 32?
All right, we're gonna take this one step at a time. He's tackling a lot of things at once here. Why don't they just raid Vault 33? I mean, they kind of did. They started with I don't know, coin toss. They started with Vault 32 because they started with Vault 32. I don't know. I don't imagine there's a reason given, and I don't think there really needs to be, quite frankly. I guess Moldaver would have seen the upper hand in, because, you know, her target was Hank off the bat. So prioritizing him as a target, you know, start with the other vault, get the advantage, you know, then get the drop on Vault 33 like they did. Sure. You know, why did they pick one or the other? You know, because they did. I don't really think it matters. Pretty sure they didn't just raid Vault 32 because she wanted to spring a trap while they were vulnerable. Plus, it's clearly Moldaver's motive to capture Hank. Yeah, the whole point was to capture Hank to begin with. I think there's a big problem with Moldaver's plan, which I have a feeling there's no way MauLer's not going to talk about it. And I'll get to it when I get to it. And if he doesn't talk about it, then I'll bring it up. But yeah, I mean, as far as all this goes, there's no, you know, the plan was to start with Vault 32, get the upper hand on Vault 33 so she could kidnap Hank. And that was her mission, was to kidnap Hank. So, yeah.
approach, why didn't they just go straight into 33? They were willing to raid Vault 32, so why not just raid Vault 33?
And again, they basically did raid Vault 33, so they just did it from a position where they had the upper hand. Is it lucky that Vault 32 had killed themselves? I mean, I guess. They would have... What, like the Vault Dwellers were going to stand a chance against the Raiders anyways? Like, really?
And then how insanely...
I'm sure her plan isn't flawless, but to say she should have raided the vault right away is a bit dumb. Yeah, again, when your priority is to kidnap someone, especially when you're dealing with raiders on your side, who are a bit difficult to keep in line, yeah, you would think ideally it's like, all right, we're going to do this setup where I get my guy, the rest is going to be what it is going to be. As long as the priority is accomplished, which she did.
Lucky is it that everyone's already killed each other ages ago in Vault 32, meaning they have every opportunity to simply take over and pretend to be Vault 32. But then why was everything untouched and unlived in Vault 32 since the deaths of the Vault Dwellers? Remember, the Raiders arrived and had to live there until the date for the wedding that was organized by Moldava over the Overseer's terminal with Hank. I have no idea how she was able to pass any kind of basic check from him, by the way.
Didn't... Okay, fucking hell. It's a lot at once. Why did they live in Vault 32 instead of going right to Vault... Who says they lived in it? They could... How long were they there? We don't know. Do we? Unless there's some specific reference to, like, these messages that he's, you know, sending between them and the other vault. If they were messaging those in Vault 32, and... I guess... It would be like a plot hole if they got a message, you know, months in advance of the raid on Vault 33, but I don't know. Anyways, let me sorry. I know I'm kind of I'm watching a little bit too much at once.
And had to live there until the date for the
and trying to respond to too many things at once.
Wedding that was organized by Moldava over the Overseer's terminal with Hank. I have no idea how she was able to pass any kind of basic check from him, by the way. We see them fully kitted out with vault suits, Pip-Boys, exchange of information, and fundamental...
Also, didn't Moldava live in a vault, or am I mistaken? Or, no, she was with, what's her name, Rose, Lucy's mom, who was a vault dweller, so... I don't think it doesn't make sense that Moldava would have some understanding of vault life and how to, you know, approach being an overseer. Plus, she was NCR, right? So it's not impossible to assume that she has some sort of understanding of what goes on in vaults, anyways, because plenty of vaults litter NCR territory. I imagine that's it's a pretty, you know, vault knowledge is probably pretty common knowledge to most of the NCR.
Knowledge of the situation regarding the vaults. They even understand etiquette, somewhat. Meaning the Raiders lived in Vault 32 and changed nothing?
No, not necessarily. They would have just been... I just assumed they were given a brief. I mean, that's what you do before you go on a mission. Typically, you have some sort of brief. You come to some sort of understanding. That way you can achieve your desired goal. I don't think it's necessary. They might have, I mean, you know, they might have lived in Vault 32 in the fucking mess that it was, but why would you assume that? That's not a necessary component of what happened.
Just hung out with the corpses right next to them as they conducted everyday life? No attempt.
And I suppose, in fairness, if we're going to talk about raiders, and I'm not, again, I stand by what I said before, I'm not using this as a justification, but like, we see in the games literally all the time, raiders are surrounded by fucking corpses wherever they live. It's just, you know, it's kind of their aesthetic at this point. It's goofy and silly. And again, I'm not using that as an actual defense. I'm only saying if we're just going to assume they lived in Vault 32 for however long, then yeah, okay.
To maybe move the bodies? Were they lucky enough to arrive just a day before the triennial schedule and Hank agreed despite having no contact for 2 years?
My assumption was just that Moldava knew of when the triennial event was taking place because she knew Rose. And I imagine she probably went into the vault herself at least a couple of times. Just to try and, you know, intel gather. Like, I don't know, I feel like that's a pretty safe assumption to make, right?
Once you reach
Oh my god, we're only 6.5 minutes through this. Woo!
the end of the season, the notion that Hank would be overprotective of Lucy is an understatement. You'd think someone like him would discover as much as he could about the man marrying his daughter. You know, hopefully as a baseline you confirm he's not a fucking psychopath. I guess a man who chooses to nuke an entire city out of spite for his wife taking his daughter away doesn't care too much about who she marries. I also
No, I think it comes from Hank's understanding of vault culture, like, and, you know, just understanding, like, this is the type of person that the guy is likely going to be. And again, like, the arranged marriage things is, like, part of their customs. I don't think it makes a lot of sense myself. I don't think arranged marriages in general make a whole lot of sense myself. Not even just within the, you know, context of the show. But, you know, if we're going to take it at face value, you know, they have these arranged marriages between people that are selected from the vault. So Hank's assumption, knowing the vault culture, is, oh, okay, they picked, you know, a strapping, wonderful young man to be with my daughter. Like, that's, you know, just like they've picked my daughter, this wonderful, great young lady, to be the bride of that person. So, I mean, yeah. Again, that's, you know, that's taking the arranged marriages thing for what it is, which I think, again, just me personally, I think arranged marriages are a really strange concept even in the real world.
think it's strange that a Pip-Boy for Vault 33 can open the front vault door for Vault 32 when they are very deliberately separated vaults designed for seclusion as part of the experiment. In fact, I'm surprised that everyone has the
I don't think it's an issue of, I don't think the issue is as he is framing it. Let me say that. He's framing it as, why can a Pip-Boy from Vault 33 open Vault 32? But that question would simply go back to literally every other game. How come a Pip-Boy from Vault 101 can open Vault 87? How come a Pip-Boy from Vault 111 can open Vault 89? Like, they're Pip-Boys. They're Vault Tech, well, tech. They're, you know, one of their core functions is to be able to interact with Vault Tech technology. A Pip-Boy can open a vault door, like, this has been an established thing for a very long time. It would make sense to make it to where the Pip-Boys could only, like, these specific Pip-Boys designed for these specific vault dwellers could only open their own vault doors for the sake of the experiment. But at the same time, how do we not know? Let me reword that question. That was a bad question. How do we know that more open interaction between the vaults wasn't already something that they had accounted for when designing this experiment in the first place? I hate to say it, but I don't know. Because we don't have like a scene or anything going over the specifics, like in extreme depth anyways, of this particular vault experiment. And it's not like a game where we can go and, you know, read certain lore notes off of terminals. I can see a vault doing it like they depict. It's a lot more believable anyways, not that I agree with them. Yeah, I mean, this is addressing the lore from Fallout 3 through 4. In 3, they do actually have door codes preventing them from opening other vaults. Forest Pip-Boys, a rarer model only in Boston, they can open other vaults. Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Pip-Boy lore is pretty inconsistent. I don't know. Wait, so in Fallout 3 in New Vegas, I don't know, it depends on the vault, I guess, because some vaults are already open, but others you just need to pull a switch, or you need to have a switch pulled from the inside. Yeah, I don't know. This is starting to feel like something that just stretches back. I said it was a consistency from the games, but I was misremembering because I thought it was always like Fallout 4 where it was, you have a Pip-Boy, you open the door. But then again, Fallout 2 starts with the Enclave opening a vault door without a Pip-Boy. But also there are instances of vaults you can't open with it. Yeah, it's fucking weird. It's honestly an issue that Fallout's been inconsistent with. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Sorry to seem like a flip-flopper. I was misremembering a detail. Yeah, no, it's definitely an inconsistency that stretches throughout the series. I suppose I don't know. I feel like, yeah, not even just Bethesda. You're totally right. I feel like at best, and this is cope. I'm throwing this out there as sort of a inverse devil's advocate. You could probably try, maybe not succeed, but try and go back through every single vault and be like, well, why would this experiment allow for people to open the door, and why would this one not allow people? You know, we could do that if we wanted, but as a general rule of thumb, yeah, no, I think it's just an inconsistency throughout the series. Pertaining specifically to the show, though, I don't necessarily think it's a problem that a Pip-Boy can open any of these vaults, because again, that could very well be part of the experiment. What happens when they start to have more open exchange? Well, then they find out what's in Vault 31. So then what happens then? And that could be something the Vault Dwellers themselves think about when they start to realize that their lives are basically one big experiment. It is a very complex labyrinth, this whole experiment.
Vaults designed for seclusion as part of the experiment. In fact, I'm surprised that...
Although I will say, like, to keep it on the show, and I'll just say modern Fallout canon, Fallout 4, if we're just, if we're trying to find a baseline, Fallout 4 established, okay, you need Pip-Boys to open vault doors, which it's a retcon, for sure, but to my knowledge, most vault doors were opened by people with Pip-Boys, be it the player character, the Enclave, and Fallout 2. The Enclave would definitely have Pip-Boys. There's no way they would not have access to that technology because they were in cahoots with the government Vault-Tec before the war. Force was the most recent, so it's easier to believe they're operating like Force Pip-Boy. Yeah, that's what I'm assuming. I think it's just a simple matter of, okay, 4 is our most recent release. Here's how we establish the Pip-Boy. Or, well, I guess 76 would be, but 76 also uses the same rule. So yeah, I think that's just the baseline they chose to operate off of. And as for why the vaults can, or the Pip-Boys can access the different vaults in the Tri-Vault experiment, it could be a part of the experiment.
That everyone has the potential to access for seclusion as part of the experiment. In fact, I'm surprised that everyone has the potential to access each other's vaults. We've seen the...
And I feel like, yeah, just like, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, there had to have been, when designing this experiment, there had to be a point where they had to have started making contingencies for when the vaults inevitably started openly interacting with each other. Like, that had to be the case, I would assume. I mean, every plan, every long-term plan has to have contingencies, so I would assume that was a part of it. They had to be under the assumption that eventually the discovery would be made.
Denial of access in some cases, but why would someone outside of Vault 32 with a 33 Pip-Boy be granted access? Why wouldn't Bud have controls to prevent the opening of all 3 vaults?
That is a very good question. Except I would reword it. I would actually say, why doesn't Bud have it to where he can control whether or not people are allowed to go into Vault 31? 33 and 32, I think, is kind of ultimately inconsequential, because regardless, the experiment still has to require some degree of cooperation between the two. Whereas Vault 31, disregarding the lines about, those 31 workers and things like that, the open cooperation between 32 and 33, it had to be considered an inevitability at a point, or at the very least something that was always going to be a possibility. But 31, I would say Bud should have had some sort of safeguard in place to where they could not access 31. Which could have very easily been implemented into the show, I think. You could have had, what's with all these safeguards with Vault 31? Why aren't they letting us in? So they find some way to, like, jury rig an entry into it, and then that leads to the big discovery. That's how I would have personally written, you know, the interaction with Vault 31 specifically. But between 32 and 33, I genuinely don't think it really matters that much in the context of the, you know, the experiment.
Surely the release of any super managers is the final plan, and so surely it must be approved by him. But okay, so
This whole super managers thing, I don't. It feels like a caricaturization. Fuck me, syllables. Um, of the actual plan. The whole plan wasn't to make a fucking society where 100% of people are the top 1%. The point of the experiment was to have control of society by starting with what was essentially a clean slate that they designed. Excuse me, that they designed right off the bat. That was the goal of the experiment, not to make everyone managerial material. And I'm kind of struggling to ascertain whether or not he's being just kind of sarcastic and funny about it, or if he's being serious and actually thinks that they're trying to design a community or a civilization of super managers. I hope it's just a rib. If it's not a rib, then that's a very faulty premise to be basing your analysis on, I think.
so her plan has now evolved into pretending to be Vault 32 people, to then perform a faux wedding with the Vault 33 people, to then capture Hank McClane and take him back to the observatory because he has the codes to activate the cold fusion. What a wonderful plan, except everyone's a retard. Why didn't Vault 33 do any systemic or rad checks with Vault 32, nor did they recognize...
Why? Yeah. What? Okay. Wait. Why did the Vault community not test the other Vault community? A community that, to their understanding, has been underground for, you know, however many fucking years. When their own community doesn't have to deal with radiation, it suddenly doesn't make sense for them not to test the other Vault community for radiation? That does not... That doesn't... No, that doesn't make any sense to me. Like, unless I'm missing something, why would that... That's a very strange question to me. They have every reason to believe they're untainted by the surface. What? Yeah, that's... Why would they test for something that... No, that doesn't make any fucking sense. Hold on, let me rehear. I feel like I had to have missed something.
people, to then capture Hank McClane and take him back to the observatory, but everyone's a retard. Why didn't Vault 33 do any systemic or rad checks with Vault 32? No.
Why would they? They're a Vault community. That's a... I do not understand that question at all.
Nor did they recognize any of these people despite making trades once per 3 years.
Okay, so yeah, it was once per 3 years. We were right on that. Despite making trades once per 3... I mean, they're only sending a handful of representatives. I don't imagine that they're sending the entirety of their Vault population into the other Vault with the entirety of that Vault's population. Although I could be mistaken. I mean, I guess, yeah, they don't recognize anyone, but again, it happens every 3 years. They could be sending a completely different batch of people in. I don't necessarily... Like, I see what he's saying, and there's something to be said there, but I don't know. I don't feel like that's as glaring of an issue as you might think. At most, you could say they should do, like, a basic medical checkup on whoever their selected bride/groom is, but that should be, like, for fertility and illness, not rads. Yeah. But even then, I feel like there's some sort of understanding between the vaults, right? Like, you know, before things went to shit in Vault 32. I imagine there had to be some sort of understanding between the vaults that, you know, they're putting up someone they believe deserves to be married off, right? Like, That's my assumption, anyways. I feel like that's pretty reasonable.
What, did everyone die and get replaced with people who had a 3-year growth spurt? How the fuck does any of this happen? Wouldn't Hank have known about a replacement?
And again, to answer this specific question from him, I feel like it's just a matter of they're only sending a handful of representatives every year. I don't think it's the entire vault population, because then things would be. Then I would start to be like, all right, why are like so few people coming over here? You know, this is like a band of what, like 20 people, maybe something like that.
Placement overseer while in communication with Bud and the mysterious silence from Vault 32 for 2 years? Do you guys remember when they split Vault 33 into 2 halves so that they can do this same system forever? Do you really think it would make a lick of sense to them to not recognize anyone after just 3 years? Is everyone stupid? None of you were capable of lifting your arm up one time to check for radiation? And
I feel like this particular issue, I just don't even know if it crossed the minds of the writers that someone would ask this specifically, because I feel like their assumption was also, and again, this is me assuming that someone else is assuming, right? So, you know, I'm making an ass out of everybody, but I feel like the assumption was that they're just sending a handful of representatives over, the person who's getting married off, the overseer, and like, you know, close friends and relatives, the people who want to see the wedding, right? Like, you don't invite the entire country to your wedding, let alone your entire town. Well, and maybe if you live in a very small town where everyone knows each other, but, you know, if you live in New York, you're not going to invite the entire fucking city of New York to your wedding. Most likely. I mean, maybe someone would, but, you know, that's just me. But I feel like this could have been addressed by somebody from Vault 33 asking, oh, hey, like, you know, where's Billy? I don't know, some random named person. Yeah, what happened to Billy? Is he not coming over? I thought that he was, lined up to be the next overseer or something like that. That could have been the opening for, like, kind of an interesting look for the audience of, like, oh, hey, there might be something going on here. And it might have even cleared up this whole debacle, but I don't know. This whole criticism feels like it hinges upon the idea that they're bringing the entire vault over, which I'd never assumed was the case to begin with. So I don't. This is a very weird perspective for me to look at, I think.
And then on the Raiders side of the retardation, they just let anyone casually walk into Vault 32 to see all of the dead people. Why the fuck would you let anyone in to see the dead people? That literally ruins the whole fucking point. All the Raiders had to do was say, ah, fuck, you know what? No one's allowed in because we had a cold spread around. And there's a bunch of people in there with a cold and you can't come in. But that never should have fucking worked because everybody would recognize these aren't Vault 32ers.
Okay, so I kind of went a little bit off the rails. I'm going to address the main point that I was looking to.
Let anyone casually walk into Vault 32 to...
So yeah, letting people walk into Vault 32. These are trained wasteland survivors. Not trained, but, you know, they're hardened and they have adapted to and survived the world above so far. Their priority is to capture Hank. And once they're in, they've pretty much accomplished just that. I just don't think they cared if anyone went and saw Vault 32, because it didn't matter. They're Vault Dwellers. They can't fucking defend themselves. At least that's the assumption that they're going to be going off of. Especially with someone who's former NCR, you know, leading the charge, essentially. And plus, they're Raiders. They're not exactly smart to begin with. But more to the point, yeah, like, I don't think it matters, really. Like, am I alone in thinking that? Why would the Raiders care if one person went over and found out, oh shit, Vault 32 is actually, like, really fucked up? Because at that point, it's too late. They're already in. They're already in the other vaults, and they're obviously ready for any kind of attack. They didn't anticipate being, bested by the Vault Dwellers, of course, but why would they?
see all of the dead people. Why the fuck would you let anyone in? Had to do was say, ah, fuck, you know, they were the cold and you can't come in. But that never should have fucking worked because everybody would recognize these aren't Vault 32ers anyway. The goal of the raiders was to infiltrate Vault 33 and get access to the Overseer because he has the codes they need. But if you rewatch that episode, they don't secure him whatsoever. They could have walked him away to a one-on-one conversation and knocked him out. But instead, they send people in to randomly kill. They are just blim-blamming, they're eating, they're shouting, setting things on fire, blowing things up. Oh look, a pregnant lady with a fork in her eye is shooting everyone. The Overseer wasn't even captured. They don't make him a priority. They instead wait for him at the entrance and hope. What if he had been killed? That would have fucked up the whole plan.
So, a couple of things here. I'm going to get into one of my issues with MauLer's plan. I feel like... is it safe of me to assume that the Raiders were briefed on who Hank was and that he needed to be captured, considering that was literally MauLer's plan to begin with? I imagine that I mean, they're Raiders, you know, they're fucking junkies and psychos. I imagine a couple of them probably went for Hank anyways. But, I mean, that was the plan from the beginning, was to get Hank. I feel like they were briefed on that, and they understood that. My issue with MauLer's plan comes from the final episode, where MauLer talks about how she cared about Lucy because she cared about her mom, and blah, 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 blah. Alright, so if you cared about Lucy, why the fuck did you let Raiders loose, essentially? So I agree with MauLer in that the plan should have been to escort Hank out of the way and, you know, go from there. But instead they unleashed an attack, which, production-wise, I know was done just so they could have a big scene. But writing-wise, yeah, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. And, MauLer, her whole thing about caring for Lucy to begin with doesn't really add up when you consider she basically let Lucy get raped, and, or at the very least, you know, misled, which is essentially the same thing, and, could have been potentially killed.
And when he arrives with his daughter, they don't kidnap them both and then use her as leverage for him to activate the cold fusion or anything like that. Instead, they say, choose your daughter or these people. And he chooses his daughter, and so the people run away. Wait, they run away? They're supposed to die. Then
I thought the same thing. I thought it was really weird that the people didn't get killed. I thought the exact same thing. I was like, wait a minute, what the fuck? Why are they running away?
the bad guys leave with him and not her. Apparently they don't want to liberate anyone from the vault, the people who have been lied to their whole lives. Some of these people are the same people the beloved Rose tried to save. The worst of it is that Moldaver allows her cretins to have the run of the place, and they almost kill Lucy several times.
Yeah, this is my biggest problem with the whole scene, and it doesn't, you know, because when you're first watching the episode, there's not, that hole doesn't exist, but then you see the last episode and you learn about Moldaver's relationship to Rose and Lucy, and it's like, oh, this doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and I feel like these episodes were written a fair amount of time apart, with a bit of lack of planning, as far as Moldaver's motivations went.
Is this not one of
So yeah, I completely agree with this entirely.
Rose's two children, you fucking idiot? What the fuck were you thinking? Are you honoring Rose and her goals by casually killing the children she tried to save when they had no idea what was happening? Why didn't you go in there, capture and restrain one by one until you can save them all from this experiment? Why were you happy for all of these people to suffer and die? Why, Lil Miss Power to the People, were you happy to unleash your raiders into a world filled with ignorant slaves to an experiment, watching everyone get sliced, diced, and decked, including some really barbaric bullshit? Why? Why was this your plan? Why? It doesn't make any fucking sense at all. Why did you leave so many of your own people in the vault? How is it even possible that your
Yeah, so again, I completely agree with the entire critique. Although I will say the whole, as far as leaving people in the vault, they were raiders, right? They were basically just mercenaries. I don't think Moldaver actually cared about them specifically.
armored, and ambushing raiders even lost? It makes no fucking sense. You could have taken over the vault. You could have gotten everyone out. You could have taken advantage of all the resources. What is wrong with you? This is going to be a very unstructured rant where I just talk about how much this show is terrible. Since we're near the subject, why don't we talk about Moldava, the woman who leads.
So I say this as someone who really enjoyed the show for the most part. I think Moldaver's a pretty weak character. I think her actress did a great job. I mean, I think the acting in the show for the most part was really good. There are some characters that stand out as not as good. I'll talk about them when we get there. But yeah, Moldaver's biggest issue is the writing for sure. I think it was a mistake. So like looking at this production wise, right? You have Moldaver show up in the first episode, but then you don't have her show up pretty much at all until the very end. Like, there's the flashback with Cooper Howard, right? But aside from that, like, as she is in the post-apocalypse, she doesn't show up again until the final episode. I think the issue with that was it caused such a huge gap in the production of them actively engaging with her character that what was likely the case was they just genuinely were struggling to remember everything they did with her, everything they established, and what they had originally planned to begin with. It feels like the production got a bit sloppy with Moldaver's writing, for sure. I feel like a lot of this show was not written with Moldaver in mind. That's my assumption, because again, she does not have much of a presence until basically the beginning and the end. And so much of what happens is irrelevant of her. Like, yeah, you know, she obviously has a bigger role in the plot, with the cold fusion and her being former NCR and her relationship with Hank, Rose, and Lucy and all that. But it feels like the vast majority of the show could have happened without her. Without a doubt. And I think she's definitely one of the weaker characters.
Leads the end.
So I imagine I will agree with a lot of his criticisms of Moldaver. I feel like I don't imagine there's too much you could do to go off base with her. Although her lack of presence certainly makes it easy to, you know, start coming up with your own assumptions. And that's not a jab at Mueller or anything. I do the same thing with her because she's so absent from the show.
CR who wants to get just.
And she has such contradicting and conflicting choices throughout the show.
The subject. Why don't we talk about Moldava, the woman who.
Which is kind of a shame because I will say I feel like
This show is terrible. Since we're near.
I feel like her in the past, her interactions with Cooper Howard, I feel like those were pretty good. We'll talk about them as they come up, of course, but I feel like that stuff was pretty decent. I don't know how much it really... It doesn't do as good of a job at tying back into the main frame of the stories, of the show's story.
The subject, why don't we talk about Moldava, the woman who leads the NCR, who wants to get justice for Rose and wants to provide free, clean energy to the people of the wasteland. Her plan was to go from the observatory to Vault 32 to Vault 33 back to the observatory. This mission would involve collecting Hank McClane. She needs Hank McClane because he has the code.
So, real quick, I just want to go back over this.
Provide free, clean energy to the people of the wasteland. Her plan was to go from the observatory to Vault 32 to Vault 33 back to the observatory.
Okay, yeah, you got that right.
This mission would involve collecting Hank McClane. She needs Hank McClane because he has the code that will activate cold fusion. However, she also needs what Wilzig puts into his neck. So, Moldava organizes a very long system of retrieval for Mr. Wilzig. She provides Rufus with caps, who then provides Tommy with caps, who then provides Ma June with caps, who then agrees to provide protection and escort to Wilzig to the observatory. Now,
Okay, I'm with you so far.
you may have one question there. Why the fuck didn't Moldava just pick up Wilzig herself? She and her team of raiders went to Vault 32 on foot.
Well, she didn't know where he was. Am I wrong in saying that? No one knew where he was. He abandoned the Enclave and he was just gone. Essentially. So, Moldaver put out, feelers might not be the right word, but I'll say feelers, to make sure that Dr. Man, or what the fuck's his name? Wilzig. What a weird name. So she put out feelers throughout the throughout the territory to make sure that Wilzig found his way back.
That's where Lucy and her team of raiders went to Vault 32 on foot. That's where Lucy starts. She, by chance, bumps into him in Philly and then takes his head to the observatory.
Oh, I will say, let me rewind this a
She,
little
by
bit.
chance...
So, it wasn't here, but when Lucy first met Dr. Man, when she was, like, out, like, her first night out in the wasteland, I remember that sticking out as, like, like, what a fucking coincidence. This massive wasteland, right? And these two just so happened to have crossed paths, like, pretty much right out the gate of Vault 33. You know, she was, like, less than 24 hours into her adventure, and she'd already ran into him. And then, of course, they ran into each other once again here. If I remember correct, because they didn't travel together, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, that was extremely coincidental. I was like, holy shit. Like, you know, stories always have their elements of coincidence, but when they stick out like this, that's when it's like, ugh. What like, it's not the worst thing in the world, but like, really?
And bumps into him in Philly and then takes his head to the observatory.
Also, is it just me?
She,
Or
by chance, bumps into...
does this guy look, does he not look like Tobin Bell crossed with fucking what's his name from Human Centipede 2? I don't remember the actor's name or his character because Human Centipede 2 is a fucking stupid movie, but he looks like Jigsaw crossed with the Human Centipede 2 guy. Like, it weirds me the fuck out.
To him in Philly and then takes his head to the observatory. The only reason an extended set of idiots would have been paid caps by her to move him from Philly is because she knew he would be in Philly. Had she just waited...
I don't think that's necessarily true. I mean, you send out feelers to different territories, or, well, different parts of a territory, right? I'm assuming that she, and, you know, hey, maybe it's just me assuming, but I assumed from the beginning that it was, oh, okay, he escapes from this Enclave territory. She needs to find him. She knows he's escaped from the Enclave territory. She knows he has to be within a certain territory, so she's going to send out feelers throughout that territory so that she can hopefully come in contact with him and help him find his way to her. Like, obviously, he knows where the observatory is, so she knows that he knows where he needs to go, so she's going to cover that territory to make sure that he gets his way back, or that he finds his way back. I feel and just because he happens to have gone in, like, she could have had feelers anywhere. Like, he could have gone where any one of her other feelers happened to be. It just happened to be Philly, which, you know, okay, coincidence that Lucy, Cooper, and Maximus showed up there also. Sure, I guess, but that's not really the point of this particular critique, so, you know.
With her raiders in or near Philly for a day, she could have taken him with her. But no, instead of handling it herself like she did with Hank, she's gonna...
Well, she had to get Hank. I mean, it's already a journey from the observatory to the vault, back to the observatory. This happened to be, I don't know, this happened to be during the time that, I keep forgetting his fucking name. Wilzig. This happened to be during the time that Wilzig was just escaping the, or, well, just defecting from the Enclave, I'll say. So, like, she can only be in so many places at once. I don't... It'd be pretty fucking weird, I think, if Moldaver just happened to be appearing in so many different places at once. Don't you think? Like, is that just me? Like, yeah, she could have gone to Philly. She also could have gone to fucking New Vegas. She could have gone to the ruins of Shady Sand. She could have gone to so many different places that Wilzig might have gone to. But there's a huge chance that she could have been wasting her time by doing so. Wasting time and resources and putting herself in danger. So she puts out feelers over a huge territory that he could be in. And the ones that... the feeler that he runs into is the one that he runs into. Yes.
pay Rufus to pay Tommy to pay Ma June to get him there. Is she stupid? We're supposed to believe Moldava loves Rose. She says, oh, you know, Lucy, your mother was so kind, so...
This feels like... Hold on.
Rufus to pay Tommy to pay Ma June to get him there.
This feels like... And I'm going to say this in the least insulting way possible. So... This feels like the Cosmonaut Variety Hour thing with the prequels, where he's like, I don't remember the exact framing. It was like, you know, Palpatine hired blank to hire blank to hire blank to hire whoever it was to, you know, fire out the little space bug, whatever the fuck's to kill Padme. And it's like, yeah, there's a chain of command in when trying to accomplish a mission. Yeah, she put out someone that she knew to be reliable in this area so that they could send out somebody to important people in this territory, such as, what's her name, Marjorie, someone who was going to be there. What's the word? In Mass Effect 2, Thane has a word for, it's like the invisible people, right? The people that are always there, like children. Hopefully you understand what I'm saying. Yes, there is a line of succession. There is a chain of command to it, because I mean they're in the post-apocalypse. They're not, you know, this isn't Mass Effect. They don't have fucking FTL comm buoys and super fast methods of communication. At least not across the entirety of, you know, California and Nevada, let alone the U.S. So yeah, she has to have one person talk to another who can make sure that, you know, this part of the territory is covered, and then, you know, this person over here in this part. That's the order of operation. That's how it works.
Is she stupid? We're supposed to believe Moldava
Also thanks Psychonautic for the explanation of the canon show. Okay.
loves Rose. She says, oh, you know, Lucy, your mother was so kind, so loving, so curious, so clever. She says these attributes were quite reflected in Lucy. If that's true, then why the fuck didn't you care what happened to Lucy in Vault 33?
I agree. And we'll keep, every time he comes back to it, I'm going to agree. Yeah, the Moldaver's plan with Vault 33 was very flawed from the beginning. And it's only because of what they try to establish between her and Lucy. I feel like if that element of the plot was left out entirely, like her supposedly caring about Lucy, this would not be an issue. Because it would be like, oh, okay, she only cares about getting Hank. Yeah, she doesn't give a fuck what happens to anyone else. But she allegedly does, and yeah, Lucy gets stabbed and almost killed multiple times, so, yeah.
Your raiders almost killed her several times. Did you want your best
Also, she basically got raped, and that's kind of fucked up. Like, what the fuck, man?
friend's daughter to be tricked into sleeping with some random raider as well? The fuck? Second, why didn't you liberate her from Vault 33 as well as her brother? Third, why didn't you save...
So, as far as not liberating them from the vault, I mean, why would she take her away from this place that has all of these resources, especially since Lucy was likely not to be compliant to begin with? I mean, that feels like an unnecessary addition to her plan, which is already a flawed plan to begin with, so.
the people there in general? Fourth, why didn't you prevent...
Wait, hold on, let me hear that again.
...her brother? Third, why didn't you save the people there in general? Fourth...
Well, she didn't care about anyone else. Which, again, doesn't line up with the whole thing with Lucy, but, like, disregarding Lucy, Moldaver doesn't give a shit. Thank God you're covering this. Hello, Doom UVB. I'm glad you could join us. And thank you. I'm happy to cover it. I very much enjoy MauLer's content, even when I disagree with it. Which, to be fair, normally I do. This is... Even then, like, I agree with several of his points here, but I don't agree with several of them also. I'm very mixed on this video so far.
Fourth, why didn't you prevent Rose from going feral? Did you not provide her the vials to stop her...
Okay, alright. We're gonna... Right now, we're gonna gloss over this, but we will fucking come back to it, because there's no way this is not gonna become, like, a big talking point at some point, especially probably around where the Gould is, I would assume. This whole thing is like my biggest issue with the show. Well, it's one of them. Moldaver's another one of the big issues, but this whole fucking ghoul juice thing, we will get to that. That's one of my biggest issues with the show, by far. We'll get there.
Skin from melting, and then, of course, if you care about it.
But I suppose to answer, because like in regards to like why didn't she use it on Rose, I don't really have an answer because my time spent thinking about that ghoul juice, it's been thinking about so many other issues that come up. I haven't even thought about this. On its face, yeah, I would say that's a very good question. Like, why the fuck wouldn't she? There's no way that she wouldn't be able to provide it. I would think, right? Like Moldaver obviously has lots of connections. I guess the NCR is not a fan of ghouls, so it's not likely the NCR would have a reserve of this ghoul juice to begin with. But even then, I don't see why she wouldn't be able to find it out in the wastes, be it through feelers or anything else. Don't even get started on the turret scene. Oh yeah, I talked about it, but the turret scene at the very beginning, where what's his name? I keep forgetting his fuck. It's so weird. Wilzig, where he's just running and not getting hit by the turret. Yeah, it's a bad scene. Also, Lucy's Vault would have been raided by the Master's army in Fallout 1. Would it have been? I'm genuinely asking this because I've only played so much of Fallout 1. I'm not as familiar with the lore for it as I am for the lore of 3 and up, essentially. I know about the Master, obviously. Like, I know about the Master, I know the lore of the Master. And I'm going to be beating Fallout 1 probably really soon, actually. But, why specifically would Lucy's Vault have been raided by the Master's army? Genuinely asking. There's no absolute guarantee he would have raided it, but he probably would have known about their existence. And had it in his sights. Yeah, that's fair. Excuse me. I mean, I feel like, I don't know. Could this not be applied to any, like, and again, I'm asking this before Doom has a chance to answer, but could this not be applied to basically any vault out west? You know, why did the Master not have Vault 3 from New Vegas, or whatever it was, the one with, like, all the raiders? Again, again, I'm genuinely asking. I feel like the simple answer is that there is no answer because then the question would just be why doesn't the Master have literally every vault under his control? At least out west. One of the big reasons for 31 through 33 is because its location being so close to where the Master's hideout was in Fallout 1. That's fair. Does the Master know about, essentially every vault in the vicinity of his own? Or is it just a matter of he covered so many vaults during his time that it doesn't seem likely he would have missed 31 through 33? Because I feel like that's an important distinction.
Did you not provide her the vials to stop her skin?
Hello, Elias 00. Just a question, what's your take on the Fallout TV series? I think the Fallout TV series is pretty good. It's off to a good start. I think the strongest aspect of it, even though there are certain weak links like Moldaver, and I would say Maximus, I think the characters are what keep me going. I think the characters are pretty strong. I think the production itself is pretty impressive. And writing-wise, it's a mixed bag, for sure. I think its strength lies in its characters, but the main plot definitely has some issues. not all of them. So not all of the vaults, but he has the location of some of the vaults. That's fair. Um, Even if we're to assume that, like, oh, I guess the master just, 31 through 33 were vaults that he happened to not come across in time because obviously, he come into contact with the protag of Fallout 1. But yeah, even so, I agree that it's a bit of a stretch, regardless, that the master wouldn't know. I'm just saying that it's not impossible for him to not know. You know what I mean? Like, does that make sense? It doesn't seem likely he would have missed it due to proximity more than his rate of success. As far as I know, it was just his MO to crack open vaults, but that doesn't always mean he could or did. Yeah, I mean, it could simply be an issue of, if we want to start getting into like semantics, like how many mutants did he have at his disposal? Where did he send them first? What vaults did they cover? How much time did they have before they were defeated by the protag of Fallout 1? Like, it becomes that kind of thing, right? Where it's like, well, why didn't he have all the vaults? Well, because he just wasn't going to have all the vaults. But it's definitely less likely, I agree, that because of the proximity, um, he should have known at the very least about vaults 31 through 33. Which, to be fair, I feel like to be fair to the show, I feel like super mutants have to come up eventually. Like, there's no way that we're not going to see super mutants in the show unless they are just not featured in season 2, and season 2 is the last season of the show. Um, I feel like this particular question, like especially the master, has to come up at some point. I would think. I could be wrong, but have I watched the Borderlands movie? Heard it's a pile of crap, so I ain't watching it. I have heard. I don't think I've heard a single good thing about that movie. It didn't look very promising from the start. Jack Black as Claptrap sounds fun, but that's about all I can really say. Um, and yeah, and it sucks because I love Borderlands. I remember when this movie was announced back in like fucking 2015. It was probably earlier than that even. I think it was like 2014. Yeah, I think he definitely would have known about them. We can speculate and write off how he may have not gotten, but he must have known they existed. Yeah, it feels like a surefire thing that the master would have known, or at the very least was bound to find out about 31 through 33. But as to why he didn't, I mean, yeah, it's the same as why he didn't have any of the other vaults. He didn't get to them in time. Also, the master had human spies, so he would have heard about her vault. I don't. How many people knew about Vault 31 through 33 though? Like Moldaver did, obviously, but that was because she knew Rose, who had left the vault. How many other people even knew about these vaults? Like genuine, because I don't think that. I mean, obviously, anyone with access to like Vaultex's database would know, but it feels because like the whole point of this vault was to seclude them and basically build their own society. So I don't know. It also like in total fairness to the production, this could simply be an issue of they did not have time or resources to integrate a subplot regarding why the master of all characters didn't know about these particular vaults and the effect that that had. That probably sounds like cope, but I mean it's at the end of the day it's a production. They can only fit so much into the screen time they're allotted. They only have so many resources to work with. They only have so much time to write it to begin with. Um, so why wasn't Caesar's Legion involved? Why wasn't there more of the NCR? That kind of thing. I'm not trying to write off the thing about the master. To be clear, I think it is a bit of an issue. I just don't think it's like a gaping plot hole. When is my DLC video coming out? Are you talking about my Elden Ring DLC critique? Because that's a few parts away. That's probably not going to be for another couple weeks. Um, yeah, that one. Okay, yeah. So my current plan with the Elden Ring critique is what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to record all of my remaining parts because I've only got a few parts left, and the conclusion itself is pretty brief, relatively speaking. It's like what 15 minutes, I think. Um, so I'm recording them all Then which I've almost done. Next week, I'm going to edit all of the audio. The week after that, I'm going to edit all the videos and basically try and release them daily. I don't know how feasible that's going to be because I'm kind of in between jobs right now and I don't know when I'm going to be starting work again. But the goal is to basically have the goal is to have the Elden Ring critique done pretty much by mid-September. You thought I was done with the main game? No, I still have a couple more things to talk about with the main game. The Fallout TV series wastes so much time meandering that it's just baffling. Does it? I feel like, yeah, there's that one joke about, like, haha, side quests, you're always going to get distracted with some other shit, but, like, I feel like it's all in service of building up to the characters meeting with one another. Awesome, I love the series. I live off of From Software video essays. Hey, I'm glad you're enjoying it, you know? And if you love Elden Ring, I appreciate the fact that you can appreciate the critique despite what I'm sure are many disagreements that you have. To be fair, any vault they added would have had the issue of why the master didn't find it, considering the locale of the show. Yeah, like, there was no way they were going to be able to introduce a vault, right, without that becoming a bit of an issue. And of course, you could argue then, like, well, why not just not introduce a vault at all? Like, well, I mean, they're a staple of the series. It allows us to have a protagonist that we can start off having a sort of empathetic understanding of. So, you know, it's to an extent, obviously, to a better extent than a total wastelander. Something like New Vegas works because you don't have to be a vault dweller. You're just a courier. It's a blank slate, essentially. You had one job, and then you got fucked up during that one job. But for a TV show, you know, they're trying to make you empathize with the main character, who is a character and not just your role-playing avatar. So yeah, I mean, I can understand the desire to introduce the vaults, and yeah, the thing with the master was always going to be an issue, I think. Also, instead of them nuking the NCR, they could have made an entire show about how the NCR collapsed due to their own incompetence and corruption. They certainly could have. I feel like there's no way Season 2 is not going to have some kind of... Dog, are you good? Dog, why you keep scratching? You got fleas? You got fleas, bro? Sorry. I feel like Season 2 is very much... They need to expand on the fall of the NCR. There's no... Especially if they're going to Vegas, right? Like, the NCR has such a presence in the context of New Vegas. Even if, you know, regardless of what direction they take New Vegas, NCR plays a pivotal role in that city's history. They have to go back to it at some point. There's no way they don't, I would think. If they don't, then yeah, that's going to be a big problem. I don't think you need an entire show dedicated. I mean, you could, but I don't think it's necessary.
From melting. And then, of course, if you care about her so much, why the fuck are you letting her live like this? She's half skeleton. Why the fuck are you letting this happen? Well,
that is one of those things where it's like, yeah, Moldaver's clearly sick in the head. That's not me writing off the criticism. It's not. It's just me saying, yeah, like Moldaver's a bit fucked up in the head.
oh, she was so kind and loving and curious and clever, and I hold her hand at the end because, oh, we achieved our goal. Oh. Fucking hell, you could have put her out of her misery. Fifth, why?
Yeah, I agree, for sure. I think they wanted the reveal of what happened to Lucy's mother to be they wanted it to be more direct and on the nose and in your face than it should have been.
Why did you want to blow up a bunch of innocent people with that bomb, you psycho cunt? She literally provides a personal threat to a pregnant woman. How is this in character? Sixth, why did she introduce her?
I mean, I would say it's in character because she's fucking crazy. Again, I'm just joking. But yeah, Moldaver's... She's too sadistic in the first episode to try and make up for it by the end by saying, oh, she actually cared all along or anything like that. I think I really would have preferred if Moldaver was just straight up fucking evil. Like, just some sick motherfucker twisted in the head, you know? Like, you can argue that would be less complex, but I think it would have achieved a much better result. Given how she was set up in the first episode.
Herself as
Lee Moldaver.
You'd have to very shakily assume Hank never saw of or heard of Moldaver, despite his company having bought out hers pre-war, and then she would need to hope that he never...
I mean, I don't think that's... Let me hear that again.
Moldova, despite his company having bought out hers. We assume Hank never saw of or heard of Moldova, despite his company having bought out hers pre-war. And
I mean, is that not a safe assumption to make anyways? Especially 200 years later, like he's not going to remember the face and names and details and background of every, business partner that he worked with 200 years prior. You know what I mean? Like that seems like a bit of a stretch.
then she would need to hope that he never saw her or learned about her in the wasteland when he went to get his kids and destroyed Shady Sands.
Again, like at best, they might have met once over 200 years prior. It just, that whole bit seems like a bit of a stretch to me. The Fallout TV show runs into a lot of contrivances. Characters teleport where they need to be, coincidences which a series can have, but this has so many. What examples of characters teleporting do you have? I don't remember any off the top of my head. There are definitely contrivances. I feel like everyone happening to run across each other, especially in Philly, and what was it, episode 2? That felt extremely coincidental. Because, like I said, Moldaver probably has feelers going out across the entire territory of the West, right? Or at the very least, the area they're covering between the dome, whatever it's called, and the vault. But the fact that Cooper Howard, Maximus, and Lucy, and is it Wilzig? God damn it to hell. Wilzig. I got it. The fact that all of them happen to meet up at the exact same time in that exact spot, it's like, yeah, that's pretty contrived. I don't think it's the worst thing ever. Like, those kinds of things happen in stories. And I think, for what it's worth, the finale is built up better with them all showing up there. But because at that point, we understand why they would be. But yeah, in Philly, it was very contrived.
On that note, how does Moldava even know Hank blew up Shady Sands? It could have been all kinds of people outside of a single vault dweller.
How did Moldaver know Hank blew up Shady Sands? Very good question, but that also feels like something that's bound to be expanded upon. And I'm not trying to write this off. Like, it is a glaring issue, but to me, it just feels like something that has to be tackled in the next season. Like, there's no way, especially because they're building up Hank to be more of a involved character. So, like, surely they're going to be expanding on him if that's going to be the role that he takes. If you don't mind me asking, Loveless, who made your profile picture and character? That was a friend of mine, an IRL friend of mine. They drew it as a birthday gift, and it made me very happy, so I decided to roll with it. Also, if I'm corrected right, Cold Fusion is in the Gex that NCR had in Fallout 2. Are they? I genuinely don't know. I don't remember much about the Gex, to be perfectly honest, because let's be real, the last time they were relevant was Fallout 3. I mean, I guess they were kind of relevant to the show, but I don't know. Lucy teleports where the Brotherhood of Steel Knight is. Forgot his name since it's been some time since I watched the series. Maximus? Are you talking about when they met, when his armor broke down? I don't know if I would call that a teleport, but it's very coincidental. Like, oh, wow, she happened to come across you, the one person that's going to show you mercy. Like, yeah, that's pretty convenient. Again, not like a glaring plot hole, but yeah, super convenient.
Did he say he did it? Cause, why the fuck outside of a single vault dweller? Did he say he did it? Cause, why the fuck would he do that? And of course, if he...
Wait, did he say he did what? Sorry.
To get his kids and destroyed Shady Sands. On that note...
Oh, did he say he destroyed Shady Sands?
How does Moldava even know Hank blew up Shady Sands? It could have been all kinds of people outside of a single vault dweller. Did he say he did it? Cause, why the fuck would he do that? And of course, if he did tell her he did it, then he would know her. In fact, this gets even...
So yeah, no, I don't think he knew her. I don't think he was, going around talking about it. But I feel like, I mean, she's in CR. She has to have resources for gathering intelligence. And again, this isn't me writing off. Again, I agree that this is a big issue that needs to be addressed in season 2, but You know, how did she know about him? That, and I think part of it also has to do with the fact that we just don't see enough of Moldaver throughout the show. She doesn't have enough of a presence or an active role in the plot. So they didn't really have any. I don't want to say they didn't have the room to expand upon it, but they didn't devote enough time to explaining that for sure. And I think they should.
Even weirder because she almost expects him to know her.
I think I know who you are.
Everyone knows who I am.
On one
I didn't get the feeling that that was talking about, and this might just be a me thing. I didn't get the feeling that that was him talking about like her as a person. I felt. I think the interaction there. Let me rewind it.
to know her.
I think I know who you are.
I think that's him saying, "I know you're in CR, and I know you've come for me because you haven't killed me, and I see the way you're looking at it. Like, you know, I think you're in CR, and this is about Shady Sands."
Everyone knows who I am.
That response, holy fuck, what the fuck? I don't even know what to make of that. I'm gonna be honest. I genuinely wait. Hold on. Wait. Okay, so
It's him to know her.
I think I know who you are.
he's saying, in my head, again, this was my assumption. I think I know that you're in CR and you've come for me because Shady Sands.
Everyone knows who I am.
What the fuck does that mean? Not even in the like, let's say he's like, oh, I know you're Moldaver from the NCR somehow. Or I know you're Moldaver from the past. Regardless of the context, what does that response even mean? Like, genuinely. Hank is extremely lucky that the nuke went off properly instead of pulling a divide when he launched it. My assumption was that the nuke was already there, and that it got blown up from beneath. That was my guess. I could be wrong. It could be an issue of like he did like the courier and fired the missile off from a distance, but my assumption was that it could be either or. I feel like if it's the one that because my assumption was that, oh, it's a nuke. Oh, what was the NCR doing with nukes? Oh, the NCR had nukes and Hank wanted to blow them up. There's probably some conflict there. That's my assumption. I could be completely off base and he could have just fired it from, fuck off butt fuck nowhere and just been like, oh, I'm targeting the NCR, but we don't know. Which I'm sure is probably frustrating to hear at a point, but again, they're going to be expanding on the character. I assume. If they don't, then yeah, it's a big problem.
On one hand, this could literally be anyone looking for...
Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about this scene. They're standing next to a fucking crater, like, what, how long after a nuke went off? Doesn't matter. It wasn't long enough. They should be fucking falling... They should be, like, falling apart, essentially. Like, this should be a scene straight out of Chernobyl. Which, by the way, is a fucking amazing show. Go watch it if you haven't.
revenge for what Hank did to Shady Sands rather than Moldaver.
But going back to the thing with Hank and the NCR, I feel like his role in all this is really weird. Because he was supposed to be, business guy who was a bit of a corporate stooge, and now because of cryostasis or whatever, he's made it all the way 200 years in the future, right? So, what's his beef with the NCR, especially if he's been in the vault this whole time? I genuinely don't know. Like, this is a huge thing that needs to be addressed in the next season. Like, and I feel like it has to be the next season. This isn't something that they can just put off forever, because this is, like, a really huge part of the plot. And not just the plot, but, like, at least these two pivotal characters, right?
But on the other, if it's an obvious choice to think she is the Lee Moldaver, why did you give your fucking name when introducing yourself in an attempt to trick him?
Lee Moldaver.
So again, going back to MauLer's point, I don't think they know each other, and I don't think Hank knows specifically Moldaver. I could be wrong, in which case, yeah, that's pretty fucking weird. I assumed he was just talking about, oh, you're in CR, and this is about Shady Sands. Her saying, I'm Lee Moldaver, everyone knows who I am. I don't know, that just comes off to me as bad dialogue writing. Like, just kind of something generic that a villain can say in episode 1 to add mystique to them, you know what I mean? And I don't think, it's not very effective, it's not very good. again, I'm agreeing for the most part that MauLer's is one of the weakest characters. She has a lot of problems with her introduction, especially in retrospect after having watched the final episode.
And then there's the stupidity. She was willing to raid 33 and 32, but didn't want to start with 33 for some reason, making her entire goal much harder. And
I mean, I guess. Again, her priority was to capture Hank. If they just swarmed Vault 33, first of all, if they opened the door, alarms would have been going off. Once they got down there, they would have had some level of resistance. Like, capturing Hank would have been a lot more complicated and chaotic in that scenario. I just feel like that's not... Again, they wanted the upper hand, so they went with Vault 32 first because they knew they would be able to... They knew they would be able to kill anyone that was in their way. But that wasn't necessarily the goal. The goal was to get Hank. So if they just started blindly killing everyone in their way, they might have killed Hank if they started with 33.
don't forget, she ditched her own people after sending them to attack and kill more innocent people. Why did she feel the need to blow up the connecting vault door for 32 and 33 but not the entrance to 33? If she's trying to prevent them from chasing her, she would need to block both.
You know, that actually is a pretty... Not necessarily in the context of what he's saying, because I don't think it was about them having an escape or whatever. But I do wonder, why did she blow up the entrance between 32 and 33? Because she doesn't care about them finding out about, oh, the people in Vault 32 are already dead. And it was by their own hands. It was them fighting. That is irrelevant to her. So I do wonder, like, why did they blow up 33 to 32? What was the point of that?
Both doors. Also, super lucky there wasn't way more extreme security on the armory, eh? And to put a pin in that, on one hand, she was apparently unable to recreate the technology that she herself spearheaded 200 years ago in order to have versions that don't rely on Vault Tech control.
So, okay, obviously this is only the start of what he's about to get into, but... I mean, yeah, in the post-apocalypse 200 years later, yeah, it makes sense that she's not going to be able to easily recreate this incredible technology, you know? So, yes, to that.
Guess she didn't hold back any technology, blueprints, or intelligence from Vault Tech when they bought her out despite her hating them. But on the other hand, she was able to create the...
Hold on, let me hear that again.
Vault Tech control. I guess she didn't hold back any technology, blueprints, or intelligence from Vault Tech when they bought her out despite her hating them. But
I mean, I feel like that's irrelevant because either way, having to... That's like asking, why wouldn't... What's a good example? I don't really have a character-specific example, but like, why wouldn't character X, we'll say, from the pre-war, not be able to make nukes if they were helping to make nukes? Well, because it takes time and resources. Like, that's a huge effort, as I imagine the cold fusion thing is also.
But on the other hand, she was able to create the equipment required to facilitate cold fusion as a source of power for an entire electricity grid. You understand California got nuked several times, right? Did you reinstall and repair the power stations, transformers, substations, and pylons? You then...
So is it not... I'm confused as to what his argument is.
Tech control. I guess she didn't hold back any technology, blueprints, or intelligence from Vault Tech when they bought her out despite her hating them. But on the other hand, she was able to create the equipment required to facilitate cold fusion as a source of power for an entire electricity grid. You understand California got nuked several times.
I mean, I feel like this feels like an Occam's razor thing, right? Like, the simple answer is that she had everything she needed, you know, from her time gathering the resources and technology and putting her team together and blah, 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 blah. All of that, you know. But she didn't have the last necessary component, and she had to get the last necessary component, which she did by doing all of this. Like, I don't know, it feels like a pretty simple ABC scenario, right? Like, am I mistaken?
Times, right? Did you reinstall and repair the power stations, transformers, substations, and pylons? You then network it all back to the Griffith fucking Observatory? How? Why?
Oh, okay, so he's asking, why does Griffith Observatory all of a sudden mean being able to power basically all of Los Angeles, if not California? Yeah, so I take issue with this particular part of the plot for a different reason, but I guess to address this, um, again, this was her passion project. Like, the assumption is, all right, we're at a point where all she needs is this one, component X, the cold fusion. It's not a pill, but the little whatever the fuck that she puts in. And she has lots of resources because she's with the NCR, or she's former NCR. So, I mean, yeah, she is at the point in in her plan that she is in because she has done everything to reach that point in her plan. Yes.
The show would have you convinced that Lee Moldava is a survivor, carved out and forced into harsh conditions by the cruelty of Vault-Tec, when in actuality
Yeah, no, I was convinced by this show that she was fucking insane. I don't think that was intentional by the show, but yeah, no, she's kind of insane.
she is a completely retarded collection of random actions dependent on what imagery they want to create at the time of...
I don't even think it's an issue. I don't even think it's an issue of the imagery. I think it's they wanted her to be the villain, but they also wanted her to be sympathetic. So they gave her something that's like, oh shit, that's something we all want. But they also started the show out with her being basically a fucking psycho, like Handsome Jack level insane. So yeah, I don't. I don't think it's just to do with the imagery.
filming. Also, how the fuck is she...
I think it's more to do with just the fact that they wanted her to go a certain direction, but they just did not know how to get her there given the lack of time and presence she had and lack of a role she had in the story. Because they wanted to prioritize other things. And that's not me hand-waving the issue, that's just me. That's my assumption as to what went wrong.
actions dependent on what imagery they want to create at the time of filming. Also, how the fuck has she been alive for 200 years? In any case...
That is the big question, which literally everyone's asking, not just critics. Like, everyone is asking, oh, like, I feel like that part of the plot was left open intentionally. Like, of all the things we've talked about, that's definitely the one thing where they're like, this is going to be expanded upon. Like, there's no way... you have a character who's like, what, probably in her 40s or something, show up 200 plus years later without having some sort of reason behind it. Like, if they never address it, then yeah, I'll eat my words and say that's the biggest, dumbest fucking thing in the history of this series. But, I feel like the answer could genuinely be so many different things. It could be a cryostasis thing. She could be a fucking clone for all we know. It could be a ghoulification thing where she's been taking the medicine. Like, there's genuinely so many possibilities. They could go completely fucking insane and make it a time travel plot. I don't think they will. That would be fucking stupid. But, like, I'm saying legitimately that it could literally be anything at this point. Also, are we not going to talk about Lucy has a dead finger attached to her? Oh my god, Doom UVB, I'm so glad you brought that up. I'm assuming MauLer's going to at some point as well. Yeah, Lucy attaching a fucking long dead finger to her hand. Jeez, I wonder if, like, letting necrotic shit into your bloodstream is a good idea. Yeah, like, no, that was a huge dum-dum. That was a huge dum-dum on the part of the story. It bothered me from beginning to... Like, the moment they did it, I was constantly looking at her hand, and I was like, why the fuck does she have a necrotic finger? Like, just straight up connected to her heart. Like, that's... Oh my god. It was so aggravating. I hated it. Yeah, that's the problem. A character doesn't have to be a sympathetic figure for us to understand her actions. It just makes her a puppet for the writers that they can make her do anything they want. Yeah, I think the issue with Moldava is they wanted to do too many things with her and just did not... She wasn't enough of a priority in the story to have her doing so many different things with so little justification for it. And so little explaining it. She's by far... I think she's the show's weakest character by far. Either her or... Maybe... I don't want to say Hank. Hank feels weak, but at the same time, he's been primed to be expanded upon. So you could say he's weak in the context of the first season, but again, it feels like they're doing a lot of building with him as a character because, I mean, the closing shot of the show is him standing before Vegas. Like, that has to be an indication, I would assume, that he's going to be taking priority, at least in like the first episode of the next season, you would think, right? Thanos has an insane plan, but we understand where he comes from, and the movie doesn't make him justified or right, but we understand his logic. Yeah, Thanos is a really good example. People who say Thanos did nothing wrong are fucking idiots. And there's a couple of holes in his logic, but you understand why he thinks the way he does, and that's the important part. Similar to Ulysses in New Vegas, I think you can point out holes in a character's logic all you want, but the important thing is that you understand why that character feels the way they do, and that just doesn't exist with Moldaver at all. I'm convinced that Moldaver is convinced that she is right and doing the right thing, and that she has a plan and blah blah blah, you know. But I'm not convinced that any of it makes sense.
Moldaver dies the hero of the show. Apparently, despite all of the
I don't think Moldaver dies the hero of the show. I don't think the show can try it, but no, I don't agree.
they want to create at the time of filming. Also, how the fuck has she been alive for 200 years? In any case, Moldaver dies the hero of the show. Apparently, despite all of the horrors she's committed, we're supposed to think she's a good guy, but let's be honest, Moldaver is dumb as fuck and an evil son of a bitch, which just so happens to be absolutely against every last piece of spoken and described characterization the show wants to provide her, and she's not the only character to be assassinated. It's so obviously monstrous that you kept Rose as a fucking pet ghoul, you witch. Anyway,
Yeah, I agree. Moldaver's just... she's insane, and I think her writing is just really fucking weak. So yeah, I mean, for the most part, there were a couple of weird bits where I was like, I don't know where he's going with this, but I mean, yeah, for the most part, I agree. Moldaver's a pretty weak character. Yeah, you don't agree that Moldaver dies the hero of the show, but the show makes her out to look like the hero. I mean, I guess it kind of does. Yeah, but yeah, my point was that I don't agree with the notion that it does. Um, the show can try all at once, but no, her actions in episode 1 are just so fucking what's the word? Separated, so disparate from what they end up trying to make her.
let's talk about Hank McClane, the noble leader who will do anything to save his daughter. She is his world. Nope, he wants to ensure her safety because she's the future of the super manager gene pool. We discover he will destroy...
Okay, I'm gonna read these comments first. Also, how they completely screw over Frederick Sinclair in that meeting room was completely stupid. They turned a tragic character into a fat idiot. Also, he's not part of Big Mountain. So my interpretation of that scene is that Frederick Sinclair was sent there by the think tank, by the brains at the Big Empty, because they're extremely secluded. Even that's established as being a thing, like a constant for them even before the war. I just assumed that Frederick Sinclair was sent there as part of their bargain. You know, they give him all the resources to finish the Sierra Madre, and he basically has to let them do what they want to the Sierra Madre, as well as helping them out whenever they see fit. That was my only assumption. I don't think there's really any deeper meaning beyond it. I don't think it fucks with his character or anything. I think it was just an issue of the think tank sent Frederick Sinclair to represent them, and he was there. I don't think it really goes beyond that. It was just a pretty simple cameo. Not shitting on what you said, I agree. Yeah.
By all non-super manager build. No.
So, okay, the thing about the super managers again, I can't tell how much of this is a joke, and it's kind of confusing me. Because that the whole super managers thing, not at all what crossed my mind. Because as I was watching it, I was like, oh, okay, so Hank knows about the experiment being to essentially recreate society from the ground up with the top 1% being in control. He wants Lucy to be in that top 1% of the top 1% that the vault dwellers symbolize, right? I assumed he wanted her to have a higher place in the society as it went forward, which, I mean, it makes sense, does it not?
Oh, he wants to ensure her safety because she's the future of the super manager gene pool. We discover he will destroy all non-super managers, meaning literally everyone else.
No, 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 no. Okay, oh, fuck no. This is a. I'm gonna listen to the rest of this because there's no way that's. I'm just gonna listen to the rest of this real quick.
For her safety because she's the future of the super manager gene pool. We discover he will destroy all non-super managers, meaning literally everyone else. Apparently he fully agrees with Bud and he must ensure the future of super managers because I guess that's the only society that will work is super managers. I guess
No. Oh god. Okay, Mauler, buddy. I'm not gonna lie. This is like kind of a daft take. So, the whole experiment was to build up on society from the ground up, essentially, with a clean slate and people whose lives they manipulated so that society would, end up the way they wanted it to be. Blah, 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 blah. We went over that already. So, there's this faction called the New California Republic. It's pretty prominent throughout, the west side of the United States in the post-war. So, oh man, he finds out, oh hey, there's this basically a society. They're pretty huge. They have a large reach from, I'm pretty sure it's in Northern California all the way down to as far as maybe Texas. Like, they go out really fucking far. So, Hank is going to want to nuke the society. Would he? Because he wants his society to be the top one, and he wants his daughter to have her top place in that society. Again, it's people trying to manipulate. I'm trying to refrain from saying society too much because it's a meme, right? But it's trying to shape society in the way that you have full control over. It feels pretty straightforward. I alluded to the fact that I think that Hank has possibly other motives also for having nuked the NCR. And I think they're going to expand upon it because, I mean, it's a fucking nuke. Like, I don't imagine that decision was made lightly on his part, and I think they have to expand on it. If they don't, problem. But even at his face right now, it's like, yeah, he was nuking the NCR's capital city because he wanted to break them apart so that his society that he helped try and build for over 200 years was going to be the top dog. That way their experiment can continue to play out as it does. Maybe I'm totally off base. Maybe it's about super managers taking out other super managers who aren't good enough managers, but I feel like this is very, very much missing pretty much everything they were going for.
he didn't foresee the idea of some people having different thoughts. His wife left the vault with his children, and so he decided to kill her. When he knew she was in Shady Sands, he somehow managed to...
Wait, hold on. This is something I genuinely don't remember, so like I'm asking, did he know she was in Shady Sands? And even so, what happened with their fucking relationship where he was like, oh fuck, she's going to join the NCR? I'm assuming, this is only really something I've just thought about, so maybe I'm totally wrong, but would his wife, not knowing about the experiment, if he knows that she doesn't know about the experiment, she leaves the vault, she finds out about the NCR, she starts thinking, oh hey, the NCR can help out. But Hank is like, oh fuck, no, they're not going to help out. What am I going to do? Well, he nukes the NCR. Was he trying to nuke, what's her name, Rose? Is that I don't think that was ever established. I know he was trying to blow up the NCR, but I don't know if was he targeting Rose specifically? You don't remember? I don't either. I could be totally wrong. If he was, then okay, that's a whole other issue. But let me just...
Some people having different thoughts. His wife left the vault with his children, and so he decided to kill her. When he knew she was in Shady Sands, he somehow managed to get in there, kidnap his children back, and then nuke the place and kill everyone. How did any of that happen? I don't know.
Well, I mean, yeah, we don't know the specifics about what happened because we don't have a flashback or an episode dedicated to that specific happening. It doesn't not make sense that he could do this. I don't really understand what the actual criticism is here. Like, is he saying that it just doesn't make sense for Hank to be able to do this in the first place, or that his motivations don't make sense? Like, what's the issue here?
All they say is he burned the city to the ground.
He burned that city to the ground.
Because that's how Vault Tech deal with competition.
That's how Vault-Tec deals with competition.
I mean, they had a hand in the fucking nuclear war, so yeah, that feels pretty, spot on. Also, for Frederick Sinclair, they could have at least showed him being completely uncomfortable in the meeting room when they're talking about nuking the world. Yeah. But Frederick Sinclair also knew that it was going to happen. That was why he was building the Sierra Madre. So, like, I don't know. What was Frederick Sinclair thinking during that particular scene? I don't know. I think it was just... It was a cameo that doesn't necessarily contradict anything, but it doesn't build on Frederick's character or anything also.
You know, he's just a mustache-twirling villain. He doesn't want people to have energy and to live outside of the people in the vault. He doesn't want anyone alive outside of the vault. That's his character. He's a radioactive retard. Did he and the team really not...
I mean, he's not to put too fine a point on it, but he's a capitalist. He wants to be in control of everything that he's been working for the past couple hundred years.
not anticipate meeting anyone outside of their own vaults? Only if they did, they would immediately nuke them. This is especially brain-dead when he knew better than anyone there are over 100 vaults experimenting with the perfect human society. You are bound to encounter some non-Supermanager factions. With every layer you peel back, you can...
Yes, they are bound to encounter other factions, and he dealt with one by fucking nuking them because they were a very, very large and influential and far-reaching faction. I don't know, like, maybe it's just me, I don't really know what the problem is here. Like, he's saying that Hank is stupid because Hank deals with the problems the way that he does, which is by eliminating the competition, which is fucking... That's what capitalists do, and that's what Fallout is satirizing for pretty much the entirety of its run, ever since the first game.
And see more of the retarded molten core. Why did Hank suggest it would be Lucy's kids' generation that would be able to go to the surface and rebuild society? There are people up there who know what he did and hate him. He should be more than aware of the animosity toward him and Vault Tech.
That doesn't necessarily mean that people on the surface should be hostile towards his descendants, because people on the surface don't like Vault Tech. I don't know if that lines up. Like, what's going to happen with future generations? I don't fucking know, man. This feels like reaching. I don't know. And I'm just not really understanding, like, what the full point of this is. Like, Hank is stupid because Hank does the things he does, which are stupid. But I'm not really seeing a lot of why this makes Hank stupid. He's just talking about what he does, which lines up.
There's also plenty of factions Hank would be aware of. But to be fair, the assumption right now is Hank will nuke everything to get rid of all of them.
No. We're talking about the NCR, dude. It's the New California Republic. They are a huge faction. They are an extremely far-reaching faction. I'm assuming that Hank understood this because he was close with Rose, and, you know, she got in cahoots, more or less, with the NCR, so he found out about their capital city. Apparently, at some point, was able to fire a nuke at them, or trigger a nuke that was beneath them. We don't know. Again, that needs to be expanded upon. But the fact is, he wanted them dealt with because they were huge competition. They needed a huge solution. Which, this isn't... Let me be clear. This isn't me justifying nuclear deterrence. This is not me doing that at all. What I'm saying is that this is what someone like him thinks. That's the whole point.
But wait, his grandkids can't go up there, and the radiation levels would be reset, and,
Okay, so this specifically, radiation and fallout... I have a feeling that MauLer has to bring it up, so I'm going to hold off on talking about this specifically, but radiation is such and not even inconsistent, but it's such a non-threat in Fallout, and it's been that way throughout all of the games. Because realistically speaking, if the nuclear war that happened in Fallout happened, most of Earth is completely uninhabitable, if not all of Earth. Um, the only remotely safe parts of the world would be pretty remote locations. But even then, they would be grossly affected by Fallout. So, yeah, this is its own issue entirely that I'm sure he's going to bring up. But I'll hold off on that for now. Kind of like the ghoul juice thing. I'm gonna hold off on it.
It just doesn't make any sense.
And then there's the notion that he's
I will agree it doesn't make any sense regarding radiation and Fallout because like the scene where what's her name, Lucy and Maximus are standing before the crater. It's like that should have been straight out of Chernobyl. Like they should be getting fucked up. Maybe not as bad actually as the people of Chernobyl because Chernobyl was worse. That was like 20 bombs an hour or something like that. It was fucking insane. But yeah, no, Lucy and Maximus should not be able to stand in front of that crater like they do. At least not without like a state-of-the-art futuristic hazmat suit.
He spent a week looking for Lucy and Grimby after having left Vault 33 through the main door. The story goes, Hank simulated a plague by quarantining everyone to their apartments for what I assume was a long bloody time if he managed to convince people he dropped to 128 pounds. Which raises the question of how the fuck did he pull that off? How did they simulate a plague right at the moment they needed it such that it was convincing to all of the people in the vault? Bud's experiment is supermanagers, not plagues. How do you effectively lie to about 50 people about all of these variables when there's just about 2 people who can actually facilitate it? And then, of course, why does Hank, a junior...
How did Hank convince the people of the vault that there was a plague? I mean, I feel like it's established from the get-go the vault dwellers are pretty naive. And Hank runs the show. He knows the runnings of the vault. He knows how to get into the database and everything. That doesn't feel impossible for him to orchestrate at all. Not to me, anyways. Maybe there's more about it that I'm not thinking about, but I was not expecting this to be brought up of all things. I'll say that.
executive assistant have not only the codes to activate cold fusion, but the codes to launch a nuke on Shady Sands? Do they all have that kind of power?
So, regarding the nuke specifically, again, it could be a number of different things, but it's really difficult to say because we don't know the exact event that took place. We don't know if he fired the nuke from some other location. We don't know if he got someone else to fire it. We don't know if it was already there and he triggered it. Like, again, this is the kind of event that's overdue for a bit of backstory in the next season, but I don't hold it against the show that they didn't have another episode dedicated specifically to that.
Seems pretty retarded to me. Fourthly and a half, Moldava isn't even fazed by the fact that Lucy is the one delivering Wilzig's head to her. What she wanted from him and her relationship with him had absolutely nothing to do with Lucy, but she's like, oh, okay, that makes enough sense. She doesn't ask a single question as to how any of this fucking insanity happened.
I had to make a choice between their violent world and our peaceful one.
You see, Lucy, we needed a peaceful world, so I nuked everything.
Well, it's not even just that. Again, he wanted control over everything. Because that's been his game from the start.
No, I made the right choice.
Oh, fuck, this is his faction speech, right? He says that when the world is factions, the only solution is to get rid of the factions.
No. Oh, God. No.
I know. I made the right choice.
Oh, fuck, this is his...
He's trying... Well, first of all, he's trying to convince her to let him out, but that's beside the point. It's not about... Oh, man.
Faction speech, right? He says that when the world is factions, the only solution is to get rid of the factions.
If the problem with the world is factions, then what is the solution but to get rid of the factions?
If you do that, then there's only one faction left, and that's us, and we can shape the world. How does this line up when...
MauLer, man, you had it. They're trying to shape the world. Hank is trying to shape the world. It's been his game from the very beginning, which, I mean, obviously it's only revealed at a certain point in the flashbacks, but yes, that's his end goal. That is his MO, That's what he does, yes.
By design, they are creating factions in vaults all over the world. Factions would be created by the mere separation of vaults 31, 32, and 33, Hank. You would develop smaller factions in your own fucking vault.
Yes and no. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be running the show. Especially when the vault culture is so uniform anyways. Like, yeah, haha, tunnel snakes, they're funny, but like, they're a band of greasers that don't have much of an impact on that vault, and that's only one vault anyways, and that was a different experiment entirely, so
But more importantly, what is your understanding of humanity, you stupid cunt? Humanity will always split into factions the more and more of them that there are.
yes, I agree. That is one of the biggest flaws in his and everyone else who's involved in this experiment. That's the biggest problem, yes. This is rich people who don't know what they're doing, playing the game of capitalism so that they can try and have control over everything, but it's inevitably going to go wrong. That's... Welcome to Fallout.
How do you not know this, being an expert manager? Oh, and let's not even...
Okay, okay. I dare say being an expert manager doesn't necessarily mean that you have a complete and total grasp over the philosophical theory and what it is that makes us people and the inevitabilities of our culture, and that's holy moly Jesus.
talk about how fucking lucky it is that a headless suit just falls into the room. You understand that if this didn't happen, and if Lucy didn't become a retard and not point out the fact that he was putting it on, he would never have been able to escape. Ultimately, Hank McClane was introduced...
Okay, whoa, we jumped to another point entirely. Let me back that up.
An expert manager. Oh, and let's not even talk about how fucking lucky it is that a headless suit just falls into the room. You understand that if this didn't happen, and if Lucy didn't become a retard and not point out the fact that he was putting it on, he would never have been able to escape. Ultimately, Hank...
What? So, okay, there was a lot that went into that particular moment. There was Cooper the Ghoul killing all the guys in power armor. There was Lucy being distracted with Maximus and all the shit that was going on with him, and that resulted from him coming there from the brother. Like, there was a lot that went into that moment. She wasn't just being stupid. She was a little distracted. Is it convenient that the guy with power armor went in there specifically? I mean, I guess, sure, but... Or the headless guy, or whatever the fuck it was, but... I mean, there were a lot of building blocks that led to that moment. You can call it stupid, and it's fine, I guess, but... What happened, happened. I don't really know what else to say about that.
McClane was introduced as a reasonable...
It wasn't like a fucking power armor, like, fell from the fucking sky, and... he jumped into it while they were just staring at him or something. They were having their own separate discussion, and while they were distracted, he took advantage of the opportunity. Like, yes, that is what happened. And if there wasn't power armor, then he would have probably tried to sneak away. Or he would have tried to find a gun. I don't, like... There's multiple ways to make him escape without it just being the power armor thing. They just went with the power armor thing.
Intelligent.
It's not the only reason the plot played out the way it did.
This didn't happen, and if Lucy didn't become a retard and not point out the fact that he was putting it on, he would never have been able to escape. Ultimately, Hank McClane was introduced as a reasonable, intelligent, attentive, forthright, and caring man who wanted the best for his people and his family while maintaining focus under pressure. That Silo's reminding me of a much better show. If they wanted to go the direction of Hank being super evil and a die-hard super manager, then why would Lucy giving him sad eyes be enough to convince him to betray Vault-Tec?
So, this is a bit of an overlooked detail. It's pretty obscure, admittedly, but Hank is Lucy's father. So, I dare say, there is room for fatherly nuance in the midst of all the crazy him being capitalist bad rhetoric. I'm obviously simplifying, but, you know, being a little bit reductive, but yes. He's still her father. Like, he raised her. He still cares about her to some extent. Yeah. Like, is that now a problem?
Like, why would he do something so antithetical to his belief system just because his daughter told him to when he believes she doesn't understand the situation?
Oh dear. Okay. Wow. how does a daughter being distraught at the actions of a father cause the father to suddenly be like, maybe I'm not totally doing the right thing here. Maybe I got to consider other things. I don't know. He's not a mindless drone. Like, what do you want me to say to this? You know?
Especially when that code was probably all that was keeping him alive. It's his word against Moldaver's. He can absolutely and easily argue she is lying. He can deny even having a code. I suppose it's lucky there wasn't a contingency.
Could he have? Could he have just been like, nah, Moldaver's full of shit. I mean, she has me captured in a gunpoint, basically, but, you know, nah. I don't know. Sure, I guess. But I don't know. I found it to be a pretty good way of showing a bit of depth to his character. That, like, no, he can actually be convinced by his daughter, showing that he clearly has some care for her, meaning that there is more to him than the corporate veneer, than the lying and the excuse me, the manipulating. Like, I don't know. Is that a problem? I suppose to some it could be, but I don't know. To me, it doesn't come off that way.
Code set up by Vault Tech that locks the entire system.
My dad found out that I destroyed an entire community to save him. That'd break his heart.
It's sad that Hank in episode 8 is a complete clown and this man was stolen from us. God, it's such a shame. Kyle MacLachlan deserves much better than playing a fucking cartoon.
I mean, from what I understand, he enjoyed that role a fair amount. Seems like all the cast did, just by watching interviews and things like that. This scene right here is really stupid. And it should not... Look out, this fucking dog, man, he's having the time of his life. I mean, yeah, we already went over this at the start. Yeah, this is a dumb scene. It should have been reworked to some extent. This kind of thing can be done so many different ways, and this was not the way to do it, for sure.
Alright, let's talk about the Wilzig guy. Maybe I should have talked about him first, but this is unscripted, okay? We're doing crazy things here. Okay.
Oh my god, MauLer unscripted? I've never seen that before outside of VFAP and all the other shows that he sometimes shows up on. I'm joking, but... I don't know. Okay, cool. Let's go.
Okay, so Rogue Enclave Man, Wilzig. The Enclave don't get a single explanation as to just what the fuck they even are, by the way. He is...
I was so ready to respond, but that question went in a completely different direction than I expected. Hold on, wait, what? He could have hacked the turret to make it turn off and just not fix it. Yeah, absolutely. He could have... Yeah, that would have been great, actually.
Man, Wilzig. The Enclave don't get a single explanation.
So, the Enclave don't get a single explanation. Pause. What I thought he was going to say was as to why they're back, to which I have an answer for, even though I still think it's a bit of a problem in modern Fallout. Regardless.
This is just what the fuck they even are, by the way.
What they are? What is the Enclave? Like, dude,
He is aligned with
What is the Enclave? Dude, go play the game, man. This series is set after and references most of the games in the series. I dare say if you don't know who the Enclave is, like, I don't know. Just go play the game. Go look up a fucking YouTube video talking about the Enclave's lore. Like, like really? Do we need an explanation on what the Brotherhood is? Do we need an explanation on, like, literally everything that's already been established in multiple games for literal decades? Like, really? Almost 3 decades now? This is the Fallout TV show, not the games. Not everyone who played the games, they need to explain. Wait, hold on. Not everyone has played the games. They need to explain them, even if just a little bit. I mean, their relevance to the show is that the Enclave is a faction that has a focus, I'll say, struggling to word this, but on science, and one of their scientists escaped, and she's trying to interact with it. Like, his relevance to the show is pretty well explained, I think, but, like, what the Enclave isn't necessarily an active part of the show yet, so I don't think they really needed to expand on it just yet. Now, if the Enclave becomes a really big part of the show and they don't explain it at all, like they just fucking show up, and they don't elaborate on it, then yeah, okay, that would require some explaining. But the Enclave is a faction of scientists that exists. Its relevance to the show is that one of their scientists escaped, and she needs like that. That all is pretty well covered, I think. Most of the Enclave was hunted down by every faction, and it's hated by almost everyone. Yes and no. The Enclave is kind of so. The Enclave is like a cockroach. You know, they're kind of like Cerberus in Mass Effect. No matter how much you squash them out, they still have different cells. Like, obviously, they could be completely eliminated in the future, but the Enclave, ever since Fallout 3, has been established pretty clearly as having multiple cells that operate kind of like the Brotherhood, essentially, and it gives the writers the freedom to do what they want with them. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, they're literally always the evil faction, right? So, at a point, I think the series needs to stop relying on them and stop leaning on them and just be like, all right, the Enclave's gone. Unless they do a game that's set prior to, like, you know, Fallout 2 and 3. So I don't like that the franchise is, like, so reliant on the Enclave always fucking coming back. Even Fallout 4 now has, it's not DLC, but it's the, what's it called? Like the community, the Creation Club. Like one of the biggest things is some Enclave DLC essentially, and it's like, and it came with the remaster or the re-release that came with on current generation, and yeah, it's just like I'm ready for the Enclave to not be a part of Fallout anymore. I really am. The NCR Brotherhood Vault-Tec get explanations of who they are and what they believe in the show. It needs to stand on its own merits, not the games, because they are two different media. So I disagree with that on a few levels. First of all, the NCR, I don't think it's a good explanation of what they even are in the show. They're just a faction. Um, they just, you know, they exist as the new California Republic, and they get that one chalkboard scene. That's pretty much it. Brotherhood, it gets some. We see the Brotherhood operating. We don't get much elaboration on what they really are. Vault-Tec definitely, yeah, they get their own explanation, but that's because Vault-Tec plays like an especially pivotal part of the show. But the reason I disagree with that to an extent, is because the show is a follow-up to the games. Um, I think New Vegas is the biggest example of that. The next season is going to see them going to Vegas, or at least it's going to see Hank going to Vegas. So the happenings of those games matter. Do you want like a whole season to be recapping the events of New Vegas? Do you want a whole season recapping the events of Fallout 1, Fallout 2, Fallout 3, Fallout 76? Like Fallout Brotherhood of Steel? Like we could keep doing this, but at a point, like yeah, you need to go to the source material to an extent. The Enclave are extremely stupid in Fallout 3. I agree. Yeah, they're ran by a really faulty AI. And Colonel Autumn is fucking dumb. Didn't say they got a good explanation, but an explanation nonetheless. Well, I mean, at that point we're splitting hairs, because I would just say the same about the Enclave. They get kind of explained, but not really. Like, you know, why bring up the example of the others? But the point is, no, like, the show is a follow-up to the games. Like, what happens in the games matters to the show, so at a point, yeah, you're going to need to go back to the games.
Moldaver, and he hopes to steal Enclave tech for the good of the wasteland. He does seemingly jeopardize this mission by trying to take care of a dog that would have been too small for standard intake. He doesn't create a solid place for the dog to be hidden or leashed when he absolutely could have. Like look at this. This is what he has, and he fucks this up. He also didn't lock his door, so some guy blunders in and sees his naughty plans and ruins everything. Like, seriously, if he had locked his fucking door, none of this would have happened. In any case, he then awkwardly survives a gun turret unloading what looks to be
So I mean, yeah, I guess responding to that, yeah, I don't know, yeah, he could have locked his door and it wouldn't have happened. He could have. I don't know how feasible it is for him to come up with a proper hidey hole for dog meat, which I hate that it's called dog. I hate that every fucking dog in this universe is called dog meat. I can understand why he wouldn't have a proper hidey hole for dog meat per se, because he does live in what we can assume is a pretty secure facility. So like him just like what would he have done? Like dug a hole in the ground? Like I don't you know, he's only one scientist. He can only do so much. But yeah, I don't think it's about him having a locked door so much as the fact that this was going to be found out eventually. But he couldn't help himself because he did have some degree of humanity to him, and he didn't like. I mean, the guy's experimenting on fucking dogs. Like, that's got to get to you. Yeah. If you're gonna put the Enclave into the show, then as old people that are living in the outskirts of the NCR territory. Wait, what? If you're gonna put the Enclave into the show, then as old people that are living in the outskirts of the NCR territory or are in small villages like Fallout New Vegas. I think I get the gist of what you're saying. From what I gather, this Enclave facility was pretty out of the way, because I don't even think the Brotherhood knew about it, if I'm not mistaken. And the Brotherhood is, like, obviously, ever since Fallout 3, you know, they're the sworn enemy of the Enclave. My assumption was just that this was a very out-of-the-way, probably pre-war facility that, you know, happened to be in that particular territory. Sorry, autocorrect is annoying. No worries.
In and sees his naughty plans and ruins everything. Like, seriously, if he had locked his fucking door, none of this would have happened.
I don't necessarily agree with that. Like, yeah, if he had locked his door that one time, yeah, this would have not happened as it did, but I think the point of it was that there was no way he was going to be able to keep this a secret forever. Like, I was making that assumption, like, in the opening minutes, just watching the show, you know? Or at least that particular part of the show. I don't remember what scenes the first episode starts out with specifically, but yeah. The moment that he was like, I'm not going to kill this dog, I was like, alright, this is going to get out eventually. What's it going to lead to? And it leads to what it leads to, yeah.
In any case, he then awkwardly survives a gun turret unloading what looks to be about 1,000 rounds at him while he shuffles away. How the fuck did this man escape the Enclave?
That particular scene, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
How are you going to tell me that this old fuck waddled away from this facility when one person with a pistol could have stopped him? If all 6 agencies have the description of rogue Enclave man, why the fuck did he not lose the glasses, or change them if necessary, shave?
I was just about to say, well, you can't, you know, if you need glasses, you can't just throw them away. That's not a very, you can't just do that, no.
His head wear anything different compared to his fucking bounty image, the retard. Like, he's spotted immediately by the first man familiar with the bounty, so he ends up...
I mean, in fairness, he only got to Philly at the time that he did. If he tried to escape wearing some, you know, wasteland rags, then he would have easily been caught. And he had to get some new rags eventually, which was part of the reason he went to Philly, if I'm not mistaken. Because he had to get, you know, new clothes. He had to try and get to Moldaver as efficiently as possible.
Up with Lucy, and he does eventually give up. He got his leg shot off and he's likely gonna bleed out, so he decides to take cyanide and he tells Lucy to cut off his head. There's a couple issues with this. One of them being that he is very familiar with vault dwellers and specifically her vault. Not only that, he's directly aligned with Moldaver. This means that the last person he would want what's in his neck to end up with would be someone like Hank McClane, the father of the person he is handing this to.
You need to start acting like a surface dweller, Miss McLean.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think it was established that he knew specifically who Lucy was, let alone who Hank was and what he was about. He knows about vaults, yeah, but I don't think we can extend that to him knowing about Hank and his pre-war history and his motivations. I don't think we can extend it quite that far. That feels like a major reach. At the same time, though, I think there's definitely an argument to be made that he should not have been willing to. I don't know, because like the Vault Dweller was his only option. Like, what else was he gonna do? It was either that or he literally just sits there and dies, and a total stranger finds his body, and who knows what happens after that. Like, I don't know. I don't feel like that holds up very well. MauLer and EFAP are currently covering Alien Romulus, but I won't watch the EFAP on it yet, not until I see the film, trying to avoid spoilers. Oh yeah, I'm trying to I'm trying to go see that. Also, I think me and my fiance are gonna take out a friend of ours to go see it. Probably sometime next week. Maybe. Sometime soon. I'd like to watch it. I've heard it's pretty good, for the most part. I haven't seen it myself. I've just heard people saying they liked it, which is good. So, you know.
How do you know my name?
You'd think Ma June, when offering 1,000 caps to kill the ghoul
Oh, wait, does he know her name?
of the person he is handing this to.
You need to start acting like a surface dweller, Miss McLean.
How do you know my name?
You'd think Ma
Didn't she give him his... Wait, what? How does he know her name? Yeah, I thought... I forgot that he even knew her name. Yeah, that's really weird. I don't know what to say to that. I would need to rewatch the episode, I think. Or the first 2 episodes, because that was episode 2. How does he know her name? I want to look that up, actually. Because, yeah, that could be... That's really weird. How does Wilzig know Lucy? Yeah, I genuinely don't know. That's really weird. That's really strange that he knows. I mean, yeah, I guess you could say that he has like access to the. Why would he even? That's really strange. Yeah, I would have rewrote that.
June, when offering 1,000 caps to kill the ghoul, would be able to spare some change for a contact to ask Ma June.
You need to start acting like a surface dweller, Miss McLean.
How do you know my name?
You'd think Ma June, when offering 1,000 caps to kill the ghoul, would be able to spare some change for a contact to escort Wilzig. At least someone more reliable for him than the daughter of the man who nuked Shady Sands, and by extension, I assume, the woman he works for. What even was the escort plan? Was she just gonna do it herself? Also, is he seriously dying in this scene because they forgot to give him a stim pack? They clearly had one. The fucking ghoul finds it on a desk where they were working on him. We're shown it stops bleeding. It's like a cure-all. Their pay is contingent on...
So yeah, as far as the stim packs are concerned, I think the show really did not. And it's weird, right? Because stim packs are such a prevalent part of the games, but oh man, I think the show fumbled them really badly because, and not just stim packs, but a couple other things to do with healing. But yeah, the whole thing about stim packs in the show is really weird because they're treated like a cure-all. Like I can buy a stim pack helping out with Lucy's stab wound. It's like, oh, okay, she got stabbed, but the stim pack does its little fixie doodads, whatever. But I don't know about sparing blood loss when you have a whole severed limb blown out from under you, you know?
Taking care of him. I see we only sometimes play by the game's rules, huh? Even stupider than that, however, is that he takes cyanide before explaining the situation. He does not ensure that she understands what is happening and what she has to do, and as a result, he dies during the explanation. Because of course, because that's writing. Thanks to that, Lucy doesn't know what the fuck is going on, but oh.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was really weird that he chose to explain it after he took the cyanide. This is the best possible faith. I'm being very generous. The assumption would be that, oh, he's in pain, he wants to fucking die. I wouldn't even grant it that, though.
Oh well, it's not like he was deathly invested in this mission being completed. It's not like it means freedom and power to the world. I'm sure he didn't really care that much. The grim reality of a character like Wilzig is that he isn't a character at all. He got pulled apart by the plot and the need for other characters to have journeys. By the end, he barely had any personal goals or motivations beyond being a quest giver to the main character. Pretty sad.
Yeah, I agree. He that's pretty much exactly what I was thinking when I watched the show. He felt like more of a quest giver than like an NPC than an actual, character, because there's really not much about him other than he cares for dog meat. But even that's pretty shallow. It's just like, oh yeah, you care about a dog. No shit. You're a human being. If you didn't, then that would be a fucking character trait. But yeah. Cat meat win. Cat meat would be pretty awesome.
sad, since Michael Emerson is a very solid actor, and he only got the one episode being a mangled doormat NPC. Anyway, that's him. Who else we got? Why don't we talk about Maximus, the best character?
I don't think MauLer's being serious, but yeah, Maximus is a character that I've got some problems with it. I feel are bound to come up. A lot of it's to do with his acting, though. I think, and it's like I don't even think he's a bad actor. I feel like the direction for him was so weird because he's like supposed to be emotionally stunted and awkward, and I get that, but I don't know. Some of his line deliveries are really weird. And I'm not even just talking about the flirting with Lucy stuff. Just the way he talks to people in general. He feels like a complete psychopath sometimes. Like, it's really hard for me to ascertain his motivations. All I know is that he kind of cares about Lucy.
I'm sure all of you...
Maximus cheated his way into the Brotherhood. Hopefully he redeems himself later on. He has communicative autism or something. Possibly. Yeah.
will agree. Everyone's favorite little shit. Whether the fucking razor blade and a boot thing was him or the friend, I don't actually care at all. It was
Oh, really?
so fucking stupid.
I wanted it to happen.
But if it was so stupid, why don't you care about it? Normally that's like your MO, bro. I mean, I feel like it's pretty clear that the razor blade thing was him. Sabotaging, fuck, what's their name? I don't remember. What's the name of that character? Well, is it Dane? Oh, they're not trans. They're non-binary. They're non-binary, but the actor is trans. Okay, okay. But their name is Dane.
Is that wrong?
There's good in all people. There's good in all people.
None of it makes any sense. No one should believe anyone could get wounded to that extent by stupidly shoving their leg into a razor-bladed boot over and over again. Second, there's no way to think that...
My guy, have you ever been cut by a razor blade? Because I have a feeling that putting all your weight down on one of your limbs and shoving it into that razor blade and also having to pull it back out, that can do a lot of damage, I'll say. It can hurt. It gives you a bit of a tingle, if you will.
that it was actually him that did it. Like, there's no real evidence, but a bunch of people do assume that it was him, and so he gets promoted? He denies doing it, of course, but expresses that he wants it to have happened. That is expressly antithetical to the creed of the Brotherhood of Steel in this show.
I wanted it to happen. Is that wrong?
Yes.
It's also a blatant admission that he's awful for this job, on top of the fact that we find out the old fuckers think he probably did it anyway. And not that it matters, but why did Dane think this wouldn't affect anyone? Like, did you actually think you could butcher your own leg, deny responsibility, and no one would be blamed? And then, when that's actually brought up, the conflict of Maximus having taken the fall for Dane's self-harm, we get nothing. It's erased immediately. But who cares?
Yeah, I feel like the biggest for me, the biggest problem with this particular part of Maximus is that we just don't get enough of the Brotherhood because they need Maximus to be out in the ways with Lucy specifically. And there's just... it's so underdeveloped, it feels like. A tingle more like a lot of blood loss and permanent damage. Yeah, I dare say it would hurt a lot. But yeah, the whole thing with Maximus and the Brotherhood specifically just feels so really weird because we really don't get that much time with them. As far as the promotion thing, I mean, he's a squire. He's somebody's... He's basically a bootlicking servant. I don't know if it's not much of a promotion, but yeah, all right. I mean, I guess, you know, there's the case to be made that he's unreliable, but I don't know. There's so much I just don't really know about his role in the Brotherhood, or the Brotherhood in the show. I don't know what the deal with the Brotherhood in this show is, because they have the Pridwin, but they're out in the West. But also, what's his name? Maxon isn't there, so, like, what are they, like, trying to do exactly? You know what I mean? I think Maximus is fascinating as a character, but a lot of his shifty attitude was forced mystery. I think Season 2 needs to flesh out more Yeah, I think... I would really appreciate if Maximus got a bit more time in Season 2 and more development. I think Lucy, I mean, every character should ideally get some degree of development, obviously, but, like, I feel like there are certain characters they really need to start focusing on, specifically Hank and also retroactively Moldaver and Rose and also Maximus. The Brotherhood of Steel branding their own members is stupid. They literally have dog tags. I mean, the Brotherhood is a ultra dogmatic and ultra militant force. I can buy that they brand their followers, to be perfectly honest. That doesn't seem like a reach at all for me. I think the right call is keeping Cooper Howard as the main protagonist. Yeah, he's by far the best character. I feel like, I don't know, I feel like Lucy's going to be more of a protag in Season 2, just given Hank's relevance as an antagonist, but I guess we'll see. MauLer makes very strong arguments. I don't like how people think the Brotherhood should be depicted in only one way. So, that feels all, that's a weird comment to me. Not that it's wrong or anything, I agree with you actually, but it's so interesting because I've heard so many people over the years, especially like the Fallout gatekeepers, like the toxic side of the community. I've heard for so long like, Fallout 3 fucked up because the Brotherhood isn't the way it is, even though Fallout 3 like goes out of its way to explain that this is a different chapter of the Brotherhood that distinguish themselves from the Brotherhood that we've come to know from Fallout 1 and 2. Plus, there's the outcasts who want to maintain that way. And then, of course, there's Fallout 4 in the show, which depict the Brotherhood as more militant, almost like something out of Warframe, you know? Like, they kind of have that Jarhead energy to them. But, I'm cool with different depictions of the Brotherhood in different chapters, kind of like the Enclave, you know, different cells and all that. And same with the NCR, because the NCR is a huge faction. I could buy that there are, like, sub-factions within that faction. But, yeah, no, I never cared for the idea of Fallout, like, keeping every faction the exact same across the entirety of America.
Time for a promotion. Now he gets to be a squire. Like, why? Well, you see, it takes a lot to sabotage your fellow soldier, and that's taking power or something. He's like, yeah, sure, whatever.
Instead of having people be awesome, why not have them be dumb?
So off he goes on his adventure, and his knight gets bored and so lands for no other reason than fuck it. And then they almost immediately bump into the exact trail of the guy they're following. Now bear in mind, when sent on this mission, the Brotherhood are...
So, going back to what we were talking about with contrivance and coincidence, yeah, this is one of those things where it's like, wow, what a coincidence that they have. I mean, they already kind of knew the path they needed to be on, so, like, that's fine. But, like, yeah, they just dropped down for literally no reason. It's just because he's fucking bored. Which tells me that the showrunners thought the audience would be bored and thus needed some action scene or something like that. And also, it kind of forces the whole thing with, what's his name? The Knight, where he dies and Maximus takes his place. Yeah, it felt this whole part felt very, and it doesn't feel like it had to be that way. Like it feels like it really feels like you could have written this scene just to be like, oh hey, he sees some landmark that's indicative of something that makes him think that what's his name might be there because it's relevant, like, you know, a town or something like Philly. Goes down there, gets killed, and then Maximus takes his place. Like, you really could have done that, you know, much more effectively. Fallout 3 does depict a clash of the old ways and a chapter choosing to find a new way. Yeah. Because that was like what the pit was all about. Or, well, it wasn't what the pit was all about, but that whole separating from the Brotherhood, I think, started in Pittsburgh, if I'm not mistaken.
And then fuck it. And then they almost immediately bump into the exact trail of the guy they're following. Now bear in mind, when...
So I will say, as far as, like, crossing the trail of Wilzig, it's both contrived and it's not. It's really weird, because they know the territory they need to be covering, to some extent, because they know where he's going, I think. I don't fully remember, because I would have to go back and watch the briefing that Maximus gets to try and understand what it was that the Brotherhood was actually doing. But I can buy that operating within a certain territory they would come across, or be relatively close to the guy. Yeah.
Sent on this mission, the Brotherhood are scouring the wasteland for Wilzig. It just so happens that these guys drop out on their way to one location and they fall right on top of Wilzig's trail. Incredible. So then Maximus just lucks out because a Yao Guai decides to ninja attack the knight instead of him when he's not wearing any fucking armor at all. And so the knight is scared and he runs away in such a way that he fucking kills himself. I don't know, he like breaks his neck or he's bleeding, it doesn't matter. It's just
Yeah, no, that whole scene was really goofy. I found it entertaining, I will say that. But yeah, like, what's his name? The knight. He is like, he's like fascinatingly stupid. Which I can't even chalk that one up to like, haha, you know, the Fallout, or well, I guess the Fallout 4 Pridwin Brotherhood, whatever. Assuming this is them, you know, militant jarheads. Like, I can buy that any military force has its band of fucking idiots in it, but this felt like exceptionally stupid. You know what I mean? Like surely the guy's fought a Yao Guai before in power armor.
the Ninja Yao Guai is so stupid. Anyway, the knight needs a stim to be alive, and because this show is written by shitty cartoon children, it doesn't actually, like, make anything make sense. He is desperate for a stim, and so he decides while his squire is collecting it to tell him how much he has failed and will be killed for it. It's written like shit. He's like, oh, why are you taking so long to get a stim? You're just so bad at your job. I can't wait for you to get me my stim so that you can then be killed for being bad.
Yeah, when this was happening, I remember thinking to myself, like, this is like the worst And again, best faith interpretation, you know, him being a Brotherhood knight, his understanding is that squires are endlessly devoted, right, to the Brotherhood. Even then, like, just, it's such a fascinatingly stupid thing to say, at such a fascinatingly stupid moment.
Bad at your job, you best get me that stim, or oh, I'm gonna be mad if you don't get me that stim. I'm gonna die, and then you'll be in less trouble if you don't get me that stim. So Maximus lets the knight bleed out, and that's that. Why did he leave the squire bag behind? That thing is filled with all kinds of... Ugh. He gets contacted and supplied a replacement squire.
That's a really good question. Why did he leave the squire bag?
And tries to put on a voice to trick the Brotherhood as to who they're speaking to.
This is Knight Titus. Over.
Titus, that's his name. Fuck. Thank you, Maximus. Very cool.
That voice doesn't sound like anything, let alone Michael Rappaport.
I'm okay. All good here.
What the fuck are you trying to do? Anyway, the Brotherhood send him a replacement, and his reaction is to destroy his direct communication with them. This is despite explicitly claiming his path to redemption will be through getting the head to them, meaning he will need to maintain contact.
I don't think that's necessarily true. I imagine that he knows where the Brotherhood is operating and how to get a hold of them anyways. Not that it's as simple, obviously, as like just fucking dialing them up on a phone or something, but I mean, he's going to be having a squire sent to him who's also going to have their own methods of getting back. No, I don't think that's unreasonable. I think he wanted to avoid direct contact so as to keep things from getting too complicated as far as, like, you know, reporting in, especially with a squire. I see this as reference. Titus, whose stupidity killed Interplay as a company. I don't know what that means, but okay.
Retard. The new squire doesn't have any confirmation checks, nor does he question.
And I'm gonna be honest, like, I know the culture across the pond is a little bit different, but I am getting a little bit fed up with the constant use of the dreaded R slur as it is, which, you know, like, people say it every now and then, that's fine. Like, it's just so fucking constant, you know what I mean? It's like Tony Montana saying fuck. It's just a constant thing in his speech. It's starting to get to my head a bit.
Why the comms are down for Titus. Literally one of those raiders could be in the suit right now and he'd have no idea because the Brotherhood are inept. Alright, now let's talk about this steel retard and his battle with the ghoul in which he gets his fucking foot stuck in the floor.
How did a total moron such as yourself get past my defenses? Sorry, no idiot savants allowed. We like good conversation here.
You can fly, motherfucker. You kicked a rock so hard it destroyed a building. You can absolutely step out from some wood. How does a man in power armor lose a fist fight to a fucking ghoul? This fight was horrible. It was embarrassing.
Why not have them be dumb?
So, the getting his foot caught, yeah, that part didn't make a lot of sense. But I mean, as far as the fight itself goes, Maximus has no experience using power armor, whereas Cooper, I mean, he, you know, we know that he does, so he knows how the power armor operates. Sorry. Whereas Maximus, this is literally his first day on the job. He doesn't have the slightest fucking clue. Like, that was the whole point of the fight. Like, Maximus doesn't know how to properly operate it and coordinate during a fight. Whereas Cooper is like, I literally know everything that you can try and do. Oh, wait, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. I'm going to exploit that.
All he had to do was crush the ghoul's head at any opportunity, but no, he kept throwing him around. So then he bumps into a bunch of...
I mean, he probably didn't expect the guy to be as fucking tanky as he was. Which, you know, we attribute to him being a ghoul. Which, how much experience does... not Titus, fuck. Maximus even have with ghouls in the first place? Because he's with the Brotherhood. They hate ghouls. But also, he's never been on a mission. So, like... Yeah, I don't... There's so much inexperience on the part of Maximus here that I can absolutely buy him losing that fight.
Fucking idiots trying to get into his armor, and he fights them? Like, he just decides, I'm gonna take you on 1v whole group for some reason. Obviously he loses, but they don't kill him? How lucky. So he comes back, and the way they're gonna beat him this time is that they're gonna push him into his own armor so he can kill them. What the fuck?
So, okay, well, a couple things. Okay, let me rewind.
All he had to do was crush the ghoul's head at any opportunity, but no, he kept throwing him around. So then he bumps into a bunch of fucking idiots trying to get into his armor, and he fights them? Like, he just decides, I'm gonna take...
So yeah, I agree. Stupid call trying to fight them just directly. He didn't have much in the ways of options, so I don't know. I feel like this is an inexperienced thing of him just not knowing, like, what the fuck was he gonna do, you know?
Take you on 1v whole group for some reason. Obviously he loses, but they don't kill him? How...
Them not killing him, that's where I was like, are you sure about that? Because these seem like just regular raiders, like, why wouldn't they kill him?
Lucky. So he comes back, and the way they're gonna beat him this time is that they're gonna push him into his own armor.
So, the idea is they're gonna put... I thought this was conveyed pretty well enough. They were gonna push him in the armor in a way that wasn't intended for it to fit, and it was gonna close on him using the, it's probably hydraulics or some, you know, some pressurized sealing method, whatever it may be, and it was gonna fucking mutilate the guy, basically.
So he can kill them. What the fuck are you doing?
Jasmine, show our drooling friend the door, please.
So he takes the identity of his knight, and he is sent a new squire, because of course his knight is dead and he was the squire. You get what it is. So he decides they need to get on the trail of the ghoul because he's the one that will lead them likely to the head. They very cleverly point out they can follow the radiated trail of the ghoul.
All wastelanders leave radiation trails, allowing the ghoul to live. You've made it possible to trace the whereabouts of the target.
You are in the radiated wasteland. You are surrounded by radiation. What do you mean you're gonna chase him through his radiated fucking trail?
Yeah, I thought the same thing. And again, this just goes back to Fallout. Fallout had... I don't know if it's intentional or not, but it just has no understanding of how radiation works. Like, it's the most, like, surface-level observational assumption of how radiation works, but it really doesn't. And this isn't something that I write off from the satire either. It genuinely just makes no sense. And this has been a consistent thing throughout Fallout. This isn't just the show.
Oh, lovely. They've sent me a moron.
They eventually get the head because this show is retarded. Maximus then feels he might just tell his squire that he's not actually a knight. The squire points out that the Brotherhood will probably kill him for this, and since Maximus has not yet learned how to lie, he fails miserably to explain himself, fucking up so much that he decides it's probably best to simply kill his squire. Yes, this is real. This show is fucking real. He manages to crush.
Yeah, that was another thing where I was like, again, I don't understand what, like, I understand that the idea is that Maximus is, like, emotionally stunted because he was raised by the Brotherhood, who, it's the fucking Brotherhood. It's, you know, militant jarheads, half of which are idiots not to the extent of Titus, but you get the idea. Yeah, with Maximus, it's just like I can't tell. You know, I've read people say that Lucy is like the good karma, whereas Cooper Howard is the bad karma but pragmatic. Maximus, I have no fucking idea where he falls into that. Genuinely.
His foot underneath the foot of a power armor suit. This, however, does not subdue his squire, who in turn manages to unscrew and remove his fusion core. It is so fucking embarrassing. And if you weren't already convinced of that, Thaddeus, for some fucking reason, decided to not open the mask, execute Maximus with his pistol, pull out the body, and use the power armor for himself. This would certainly be embarrassing.
Okay.
And if you weren't...
Couple things. What's wrong with... So, okay.
Foot underneath
Steps
the
on his
foot
foot
of a power armor suit.
Which, holy fuck, that was brutal.
This, however, does not...
He turns around. I don't remember why he was going for the gun, right? He was going for a gun, or he was going for like the squire's bag or something like that. I don't fully remember. I'd have to rewatch it. Maybe I'm totally off base. But yeah, he turns around and the squire takes advantage and gets up on his back. You know, being able to stand on one foot because people can do that. Unscrews the thing. Max is just chaos neutral. I mean, yeah, I guess, but like his motivations are just really hard to discern, so it's hard to even classify him, you know what I mean?
Subdue his squire, who in turn manages to unscrew and remove his fusion core. It is so fucking embarrassing.
I don't really see what's wrong with that particular part. Unless, again, I'm missing something with Maximus turning around.
And if you weren't already convinced of that, Thaddeus, for some fucking reason, decided to not open the mask, execute Maximus with his pistol, pull out the body, and use the power armor for himself. This would certainly help.
So, a couple of things. One, the guy's got a fucking mashed potatoes foot. He can't exactly... You know, he can't... He's got to get some fucking medical attention soon. Like, very, very, very soon. Which, you know, he doesn't until, like, what, the next day, I think? Because he's, like, traveling and all. But regardless, Thaddeus has other priorities. And Maximus is stuck, to his knowledge. There's really no need to do it. Also, how is he going to operate the power armor with this mangled foot? Because from what I understand, you've got to be able to fit your foot in the power armor to be able to, for one, to walk on it, because you're still going to be putting pressure down on that foot. Like, and also opening the power armor, well, you know, obviously he would execute him first, but even still, like, I guess, I mean, he could, I guess, but he didn't because he's got a mangled foot to worry about. As far as he's concerned, he's beaten Maximus, so he can just leave him there. And the power armor, it's not even clear if he can operate it.
The fact that he has trouble walking, it would help with his carry load, and it seems like he would be more than justified in doing so when Max killed his knight and tried...
It would help with his carry load, that's true. But again, I just don't know how effectively you could, like, operate the thing with a mangled foot. Like, it'd be different if he, like, his foot was severed, like, blown off or whatever the fuck. Because then it's like he just doesn't even have to worry about anything down there. But his foot's, like, mangled. It is mashed potatoes. He's got, you know, he has to, like, keep his fucking sock on so that his foot doesn't just fall apart And, you know, I'm not convinced that he could operate the power armor with that mangled foot.
To kill him, and he was gonna leave him for dead anyway. Which, I mean, you might want to finish the job in case he escapes. We also know that...
But how would he escape? He would have to escape with the help of someone else, which they were in a pretty out-of-the-way area. Like, that seems pretty unlikely. And, like, yeah, you know, guarantees, sure, but as far as Thaddeus was concerned, Maximus was done with. Like, I feel like that's pretty fair to assume of his character to assume.
Thaddeus is absolutely motivated and willing to kill Max, as well as anyone who is standing next to him. It's all so fucked.
Well, that was afterwards, when he realized, holy shit, Maximus survived. Now it's like someone that I'm in conflict with. So, yeah.
You are either stupid or making fun of me. Either way, I will not waste my time.
In any case, Maximus is about to be eaten by rad roaches. Everyone is happy about this. Finally, the plotline can end. Only luckily for him, Lucy happens to stumble into the scene and save his life. It is absolutely and...
I think I referenced this earlier, but yeah, this is one of those, like, wow, what a coincidence, you know? Because it's not like Maximus, at least to my knowledge, was at, like, some set marked location with a landmark that would attract people to go to it, let alone Lucy. But, like, he was just in this out-of-the-way spot, and Lucy happened to show up. It's like, wow, that's really convenient, you know? And I think the show has a lot of moments of convenience, for sure.
And entirely a coincidence, because she just happened to be in the area. So Maximus and Lucy bump into fiends. The two fiends shoot at Maximus point blank. One of them misses, one of them shoots him in the shoulder, while he, shooting after they have drawn, manages to kill them both. How lucky. He then clearly...
I mean, I can buy that Maximus is a good shot. Like, I would assume that even becoming a squire, or even just in the initial ranks of the Brotherhood, like, shooting practice has to be a priority. I would have to think, right? MauLer wouldn't want to assume, because it would make an ass out of him and his audience. Lol. Max has the train. Yeah, no, Max has, like, of all the characters there, Maximus by far has the most training with shooting. Like, there's no way he's not trained with firearms to some extent. I can buy that a couple of junkies aren't shooting as accurately as a fucking trained soldier, you know?
Shows they have clothing he could need, knives he could need, but nope, he only takes the gun. How the fuck's this accurate to Fallout? In any case, because he's too cool to heal, he's just gonna let his bullet wound bleed like a retard. Upon coming close to bleeding out, he happens to stumble across Vault 4 with Lucy. They heal them, supply them with antibiotics, and every single resource one could imagine needing.
So, okay, we'll go back a little bit.
Could need knives he could need, but nope, he only takes the gun. How the fuck's this accurate to Fallout?
This I agree with. It was really weird to me that all they took was the gun.
In any case, because he's too cool to heal, he's just gonna let his bullet wound bleed like a retard. Upon coming close...
I mean, I just assumed this was one of those things where, one bullet got you, you know, you think that you're tough enough to deal with it, which, I mean, I don't know, that's like that's a thing some people do, I don't know.
To bleeding out, he happens to stumble across Vault 4 with...
I didn't even get the impression that he was on the verge of bleeding out. Like, don't get me wrong, the bullet was in there, but, like, it didn't feel immediate. You know, like, he was... Let me rewind it a little bit. Like, look at that. Like, that's barely bleeding at all. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you shouldn't treat a fucking bullet wound. Obviously, you should, at a point. But, like, I can see him being like, I can deal with this later. Let's just fucking go before, like, more fiends show up, you know?
Like a retard. Upon coming close to bleeding out, he happens to stumble across Vault 4 with Lucy. They heal them, supply them with antibiotics, and every single...
Max also had a better gun, if I remember correctly. The Junkie's gun wasn't in the best condition. I mean, yeah, I could buy that. He's, you know, he's got like a military-issued sidearm versus whatever the fuck the Junkies dug up from the scrap, you know?
Resource one could imagine needing. What crazy and insane luck to have stumbled across something like this when you're bleeding out. So old MaxiPad decides to have a shower.
Actually, you know what? You want to talk about an actual, like, inconsistency? There's no bullet wound here. At least that I see. That's just shading from his muscle, I assume.
Well, eat some food, relax, watch some TV, everything is fine. Which is weird when he's been trained by the Brotherhood of Steel for the majority of his life and he's surrounded by mutants. You'd think he'd take
So let me just go ahead and
the Hood of Steel
say
for the majority of his life and he's surrounded by
we will talk about that because I am sure it's going to come up in its own dedicated section. I thought this was the weakest episode of the entire show so far.
mutants. You'd think he'd take issue, but he seems very happy. Only later he spots Lucy as captured.
I mean, these people are they're basically giving him a bed and breakfast. Like, yeah, he's happy with it.
Instead of discovering any context, Maximus
Also, calling them fiends is a little weird since we already know that what they look like. They're a faction in Fallout New Vegas who are high on drugs, unless fiends is a colloquial term. I feel like fiends. I feel like it's kind of like raiders. I don't feel like fiends are a specific faction. I could be wrong, but from what I recall, they're basically just raiders. There's different bands of them. People just, it's a colloquial thing. They just call them raiders, fiends, murderers, psychopaths, whatever. It's just a term. Excuse me, it's just a blanket term. To my knowledge. I don't think the fiends are a specific faction.
decides to go on a Todd rage and save Lucy when she is clearly fucking fine. They try to imply he has to make the decision between his own comfort and Lucy's well-being, as though this is development for him when he knows so little about what's happening that he has no reason to assume he's not next. He's making the decision in this scene as though he's read the script and understands what the writers want him to think he's going through, rather than what a person would actually...
Well, no, he's been with Lucy for a while. He sees her getting... I don't know, this feels like a pretty simple 1 + 1 = 2. Like, he sees her getting carried away. He's been with her for a while. He kind of cares about her. She helped him. She helped him get out of the armor. So, and she's got a bag over her head. So he's like, oh, I gotta help her. Like, yeah, he has his little, like, meltdown or whatever. Where is it?
Comfort and Lucy's well-being, as though they try to imply it's to go on a Todd rage.
Like, that whole thing. But that was... I mean, that was him going off the handle, you know, not going crazy, but, you know, having a meltdown, essentially. So, yeah, like, he thought Lucy was in trouble, and he went to help her. Because he'd been with her for a while, and he cared about her a little bit because she helped him. Like, I don't know. It feels pretty cut and dry. What were you saying? I agree to many moments for stupid comedy as what I think is the weakest episode besides the last one, maybe. I am mixed on the last episode. Yeah, I think the show is very mixed on... I think there are some moments that are genuinely fucking hilarious, and then there are other moments where I'm like... I don't think... I see what they're going for, but it doesn't really stick, you know?
And save Lucy when she is clearly fucking fine. They try...
Which she makes clear to him after he threw the fucking, you know, Nuka-Cola vending machine. Yes. Prior to that, he saw her getting carried away by guards, armed security, with a bag over her head. Yeah, he thought she was in trouble. The mutants in the vault look so stupid, it's something that would come out of an 80s show. Oh, yeah. No, I think the mutants in this vault were... That, like, the one-eyed guy, the guy who's got, like, a fucking ear on the side of his head, or what, it's just... It feels really low effort and weird, because, like, the rest of the show's, you know, costume design, makeup and stuff is fucking phenomenal. And then you get to this episode, and it's like, what? Why does he have a sideways nose on his head? You know, like, what the, like, really? That's what we're going for?
Try to imply he has to make the decision between his own comfort and Lucy's well-being, as though this is development for him when he knows so little about what's happening that he has no reason to assume he's not next. He's making the decision in this scene as though he's read the script and understands what the...
Well, no, because they're both essentially intruders. He sees the first of them being carried away, the only person he's familiar with, and assumes that he's probably not... Again, this is like such a 1 + 1 = 2 thing. This feels so cut and dry and simple. I don't get what the issue is here. They could have made the mutants look more like something that came out of the games, the game Force or Prototype. They could have even just, I don't know, they could have done so many things. They could have done people that look like they're transforming into super mutants. They could have done like multi-limbed people. just anything other than like a nose being glued to a guy's forehead or the one-eyed guy. I feel like the one-eyed guy is like kind of fine, but it also doesn't look very good, so I don't know. What the fucking Jesus Christ. Sorry, pop-up on my sudden notification. That was weird. Anywho.
The writers want him to think he's going through rather than what a person would actually think in this scenario. It's so fucking bad. So upon exiting Vault 4, they decide to once again get back on the trail of the Squire. The Squire with the head. The Squire that was well ahead of them anyway. The Squire that was calling in the Brotherhood. They somehow...
I mean, they still... Lucy still, like, through that, wanted to find him, yeah. I've been told by MauLer fans that that's what MauLer does. Maul? Wait, what?
Somehow catch back up to him. Imagine they were just 5 minutes late. The whole show would be over. This is...
Yeah, this would be a good example of how the fuck did they catch up to him. I mean, he's got the mangled foot, so, like, you know, he's hobbling his way there, but even still, they spent, like, what? Like a full day down in that vault, probably? Like, they really caught up with him fast. Imagine their vault just being filled with flesh nuggets, pretty much balls of flesh that would move around the vault. Jesus Christ, that's fucking metal.
It's also where the Squire realizes he's a ghoul because the wacky doctor who fixed his foot turned him into a ghoul, I guess. In any case...
Oh, yeah. Wow, I'm surprised MauLer's just kind of glossing over that part. I thought that part was really fucking stupid. The whole, like, you can make someone a ghoul by injecting them... Because apparently it's a virus now, rather than just the result of them being exposed to radiation. Oh, man. It was... I feel like it has to come up. If it doesn't, I'll talk about it eventually, but oh my god, the whole thing with the, like, you know, he's injected with fucking, what, ghoulism? Or whatever. It was so weird, and it just like, Wolverine Deadpool healed his foot. It was so weird, and I think they should have just cut off his foot and given him a prosthetic. Like, it should have just been that, you know?
Realizing he's a ghoul means that he can now not go back to the Brotherhood, which means he's more than happy to submit the head to these two. Do you understand just how astronomical all of these fucking coincidences are? Anyway...
Or hell, just have a master situation in the vault, but the vault's a living creature that uses people as pup. I mean, those are some pretty far out concepts. They probably only had so much time and, you know, resources to devote to Vault 4. But I see what you're saying. Here, let me rewind a little bit. Kind of missed that. Also, this fucking character, what the shit? He was so unnecessarily... It's weird.
Fixed his foot, turned him into a ghoul, I guess. In any case, realizing he's a ghoul means that he can now not go back to the Brotherhood, which means he's more than happy to submit the head to these two. Do you understand just how astronomical all of these fucking coincidences are? Anyway, Max
I don't know if I would I mean, like, it is coincidence, but it's not. It's one of, like... The Brotherhood does not suffer ghouls or mutants of any kind. The guy found out that he was a mutant, so his mission is now null. Like, even if he goes back, they're gonna fucking kill him, no matter what. Because he's a squire without a knight. So when he goes back, he's fucked. Because they're eventually going to find out that he's a ghoul. They're going to see one of his wounds or see him heal, or he's going to start rotting of it. Like, something's going to happen. So he has no reason not to give up the head. Especially when Maximus isn't threatening him with violence. And Lucy is also there trying to talk him down. It made him into a super ghoul. Yes, it is stupid, but some people call it a retcon. If not, it's just insane levels of super science. I think they retconned ghouls for sure with this show, and I don't agree with the direction they took with it. Especially with the medicine, the ghoul juice that they take. And again, that there's no way that's not coming up probably at some point with the ghoul, so I'll talk about that when it does.
Besides, the head will go to Lucy so she can get her dad back, and the Thaddeus can get away. He's just not going to talk about what happened to him. So he ends up...
Well, I mean, okay, so in regards to Lucy and Maximus, yeah, Maximus gives her the head because he cares about her, and it's not like he has, like, a mission at this point. So, yeah.
back at the Brotherhood for punishment. Keep in mind, he's betrayed the Brotherhood several times, including but not limited to the assumed violent fucking up of the leg of a squire to prevent them from getting the position. He then allowed his knight to die and stole his identity, and then lied about having the head to the whole Brotherhood despite that being the one thing they really want, and despite knowing where the actual one really is. These betrayals would of course get him killed, yeah? Well, the leader guy says power is taken, not given. And you know what? Maximus has clearly learned that.
So I feel two ways about this. I understand why what happens as a result of the actions of the leader of the Brotherhood, the elder guy. But it's so fucking... It's just so convenient. It's so convenient for him to feel that way and for Max to get to live. Yeah, I can definitely see not being happy with the show going in that direction. It does seem like it will cause trouble later. Yeah, oh man, I do not want to be the writer that has to deal with the new rules for ghouls, especially if they're gonna just if they keep changing the rules for ghouls, then oh god, it's gonna be such a mess. Like, if they want to stick with this in the future, fine, I guess. It's still dumb, but like, alright, if you can just establish these rules and stick with them going forward, that would be great. And to be perfectly clear, Fallout has always been inconsistent with how ghouls work, whether or not they need to eat, whether or not they need to drink water, whether or not they even need to sleep, whether or not they live forever. It's so... I don't want to get into it. Also, why do ghouls look like they're burn victims instead of falling apart? I mean, that might just be the result of the makeup. I thought the makeup for the ghouls was pretty good for the most part. Some of them looked rotted, like Lucy's mother, Rose. Some of them looked burned. Some of them, I don't know, they kind of... I do wish they'd had, like, glowing ones. That would have been really cool to see, but... And they might in the future. Who knows?
And so if Maximus can complete the next mission, he can rule with the old dude as his right-hand man. This has become so fucking funny. He injures a fellow soldier and gets upgraded to squire. He watches his knight bleed out and just takes his place. He fucks around in the whole wasteland and then he lies to the whole Brotherhood and somehow achieves a promotion.
For the sake of the Brotherhood, please listen to him.
For the sake of the brother... This bitch lied and betrayed the Brotherhood like 3 different times. Oh, he just so happens to know exactly where what we need is the very moment he's about to be executed. Oh, I surely believe him now. Throw him in the fucking brig, give us the location of the head, and if you are telling the truth, we might not kill you. But that's for a world where things start to make sense.
Yeah, no, I pretty much agree with all of that. I think it's just, they went out of their way to be convenient with Max, I think is the problem. MauLer's point about him giving Lucy the MacGuffin is that you don't want the enemy faction to get what you're trying to protect if he didn't know her. All he had to go off of was her jumpsuit, which tells her party. MauLer's point about giving Lucy the MacGuffin is that you don't want the enemy faction to get what you're trying to protect. I mean, yeah, but at that point, Maximus isn't really with the Brotherhood anymore. Like, yeah, he goes back to them, and obviously he still, like, associates with them and interacts with them, but, I mean, it's pretty clear at that point he's not with, quote-unquote, the Brotherhood. You know, like, he's not personally aligned with them. Glowing ones would be great. That would open up the potential for some glowy jokes. I mean, yeah, sure.
In any case...
Also, for those of you wondering how long the stream is going to go on, I'm going to go up to Lucy and probably pick this up another time. So yeah, I'll finish this out on Maximus next time, because, I mean, it's a long video and I'm doing a lot of pausing. Next time I'll probably cover Lucy up to probably around here, probably around Consequences, I would think. And then I'll probably do the rest in another stream.
And for reasons I do not know how, Maximus knows where Moldaver is, and so he directs the Brotherhood of Steel over there. There's a big...
Didn't him and Lucy talk about where they were going? Because they were going that way for the duration of their journey. Right? Am I wrong about this?
war, everyone dies, and then he somehow ends up in a position where he's promoted again. Like, I'm not even kidding. Maximus fails miserably. However, he's seen as the one who killed the enemy leader. This means that he gets...
Well, yeah, that one was staged with Dane, so I mean, yeah, that like, I know it's funny coming after all that's happened, but like this particular moment checks out. It is funny in a way, but it checks out.
To be a knight now. He got fucking promoted again. What the fuck? What? He just fails upward.
So all this stuff before, yeah, no, that's convenient is putting it mildly. But the thing where it's staged, that him and Dane stage him having killed Moldaver, yeah, no, like that. I mean, that checks out. You started streaming while I was asleep. Oh, I'm sorry, Netherless. Although, to be fair, I think you're like multiple time zones out from me, so that would explain that. If you want to hop on, feel free to, though. We can start a good old voice chat. Talk about some of this stuff. Although I'm probably going to be getting off soon. Because I've been at this for almost 4 hours now.
I guess it's good the writers wrote what they knew. Can't wait to see him in season 2. What an interesting plotline.
I wouldn't say I can't wait, but I'm very curious what they're going to do with Maximus in season 2, because again, I just don't know what direction they're really taking his character. Like, he has this relationship with Lucy, and he has this very strange dynamic with the Brotherhood, and I'm just like, where is this going, you know? It would be difficult to cover a MauLer video in one stream while commenting about it. 4 hours for about 40 minutes is pretty good. I mean, yeah, I'm mostly concerned with sections, because, like, you know, the Lucy section is the longest one. It's like, what, 20 minutes about? A little over 20 minutes? That's the biggest section of the video. But I imagine we'll get through it probably quicker than the first 20 minutes of this, because the first 20 minutes of this was multiple topics, you know? So keeping that focus on, I feel like I'll be able to get through that part. Like, I'm not going to skim through it, obviously, but, you know, it'll be a bit more consistent of a conversation.
Filled with twists and turns and absolute...
Didn't Maximus get promoted after the fight with the NCR? Yeah, so I'm going to rewind it. MauLer's prop... He talked about all the conveniences of Maximus being spared by the Brotherhood because of the Elder... basically trying to foster Maximus to be his own right-hand man, and how painfully ironic it is that the show or the season 1 ends with him getting promoted after another lie, essentially, with him staging him and Dane having staged him killing Moldaver. I'm a little worried if they ever do touch on the Legion, they might turn them into complete jokes instead of what they were from the game. Are we implying that the Legion is not a joke? I mean, come on. He's not an elder, by the way. It's a cleric, a chapter of the Brotherhood. It's very cult-like. Is he a cleric? I thought he was the elder, or at least the elder of this chapter of the Brotherhood of Steel. Because he's not Maxon. But Maxon's all the way out in Massachusetts. That's like MauLer's style, death by 1,000 cuts. Yeah, pretty much.
Killed the enemy leader.
But yeah, rewinding for Netherless. So he's talking about Maximus, and here's the critique of how the season ends, basically.
Knows where Moldaver is, and so he directs the Brotherhood of Steel over there. There's a big war, everyone dies, and then he somehow ends up in a position where he's promoted again. Like, I'm not even kidding. Maximus fails miserably. However, he's seen as the one who killed the enemy leader. This means that he gets to be a knight now. He got fucking promoted again. What the fuck? What? He just fails upward. I guess it's good the writers wrote what they knew. Can't wait to see him in season 2. What an interesting plotline. Filled with twists and turns and absolutely insane nonsense. I assume I don't need to spend much time on this. Maximus is a shite character. A collection of random values and actions per the scene he's currently occupying. A pathetic exploration of an admittedly difficult to write character.
What does he mean again? That was his first promotion. No, so in the beginning, he gets promoted to squire after the whole thing with him putting the razor blade in Dane's boot. Um, then when he gets back after the whole debacle with the new squire and him having killed Titus and all that, they're going to execute him, but the elder or cleric or whatever he is ends up promoting Maximus again because Maximus knows where Lucy is headed and thus where Moldaver is. So it's like Mahler's main criticism is that there is just so much convenience keeping Maximus alive, and I am inclined to agree. It's so the elder happening to like see something of value in him, and in his weird decisions, like putting the razor blade in the boot, promoting him because he knows where Moldaver might be, promoting him again because of the stage. Yeah, like I can see that. I can see where that criticism's coming from. That's fine. I know a Mauler fan might not want to discuss this with me. I've been avoiding watching because of that. Wait, what? What are you talking about?
Character, one who's self-centered and power-hungry thanks to a history of understanding that the Brotherhood represents that very power he never had. He likes the idea of being seen as the stalwart hero of the people but can't escape his selfish nature. They awkwardly and
I mean, that was actually a pretty good summation of his character right there.
Walk him through coffee-stained photocopies of better scenes where in theory his ethics would be tested, yet in actuality he continuously stumbles around with a scornful face until the story can come to a temporary end.
I think that's my biggest problem with Maximus, is that it just feels like it doesn't feel like there's as much reasonable cause and effect to like what he's thinking and what he's doing. Like it's hard to get a grasp of what he's thinking in any scene. At least for me it is. I've always like when I was watching, I just remember being like, I genuinely don't know what this guy is thinking right now. So like I don't know what he's gonna do, and it made it kind of hard for me to follow and get invested in his character. I think that was my biggest problem.
What an unlikable piece of shit. His final significant act was that of trying to help Lucy by sending the Brotherhood of Steel to the observatory, a place the Brotherhood then bombarded with all kinds of artillery. She could literally have died within the first 5 minutes of the assault, and he doesn't seem to recognize that at all when making the decision. In fact, a good summary of Maximus as a character would be to describe events in episode 1, that his friend covers for him and treats him well, while everyone else in the Brotherhood kicks the shit out of him, and when that same friend gets promoted, Maximus is so angry about it he screams at a toilet. The sad part being Max's elation and approval of Dane's injury, meaning we can't even imagine he was angry that he'd be left alone. He's literally just a pathetic, jealous vacuum of potential. He's actually just like Finn, only where he was robbed of a trilogy's worth of development in favor of simping for Rey Palpatine, Max here was tanking his own potential from the first second he had on screen. Fuck Maximus, he's a boring loser.
So I don't know if the comparison to Finn is really strange to me. I guess it's kind of a wasted potential thing, sure, but we also can't. I don't know if we can really say that because we haven't seen the full show. Ugh. But yeah, I'm starting to get a bit tired. The long and short of it is, yeah, I agree. Maximus is very. I don't understand his character, motivation wise or morality wise. Like he's just very strange. It doesn't. I understand the development of his character and it revolving around Lucy essentially, but his relationship to the Brotherhood is just so strange, especially with Dane. His relationship with Dane is fucking weird. Like, Dane seems to care about him, and Maximus just doesn't seem to have any appreciation for it, which is really confusing to me. And that would indicate that he's a selfish, bad person. But then he meets Lucy, who basically does the same things for him as Dane. She's always looking out for him, taking care of him, being nice to him. And he loves Lucy. So, like, is this just an issue of him being attracted to Lucy for her main character syndrome. Like, I don't understand. He's trying to give a comparison to Finn for his audience's sake. That's what I think MauLer's doing. Yeah, I mean, probably, because he's got that fucking The Force Awakens critique that's still going on, I think. It's been going on for fucking millennium now. Maximus wanted to live up to what he saw the Brotherhood as when he was a kid. His current journey in the Brotherhood is his struggle as he doesn't actually know what the best thing to do. Yeah, it's... I think with Maximus, he aspires to be a knight because he sees... He puts the knights up on a pedestal. But also, he doesn't have any respect for any other part of the Brotherhood because he sees the rest of the Brotherhood as weaker. And I guess that would extend to Dane. But also, wouldn't his devotion to the Brotherhood and the knighthood specifically, like, also make him look down on... I don't know. It's very strange. I feel like with more discussion, I could come to understand him, but I don't think the show did a very good job at bringing me to understand him as a character. And like I've said it from the beginning, I think he's one of the show's weaker characters for sure. Now, Lucy and the Ghoul, on the other hand, these are two interesting ones because I thought Lucy and the Ghoul were very good. Same with Hank. He had a lot of criticisms for Hank that I did not strongly agree with, but I also think that Hank is being saved for a later season. Maximus was on a power trip ever since he got the power armor. Yeah, that's for sure. Because I think to him it felt like he finally obtained the status of knighthood that he had idolized for so long, and he just had no idea what to do with it. His sense of morality is just really fucking muddled. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you want me to talk about Lucy and the Ghoul? Do you want me to try and ride this out up to there? There's a lot of choice the show makes with a lot more sense if you play the games. I agree, but I'm not sure what you're referring to specifically. Don't want me to get overtired if I can't. Yeah, I think the thing for me is I just need to eat. I really need to eat. I'll tell you what. I'll think about it. I'll think about coming back later. Let me...
But hey, with him out the way, it'd be nice to check out, you know, some of the good characters, right? Why not Lucy?
Lucy, yay. I think I'm going to call it for now. I might come back later, depending on what my fiance's up to. Right now, she's at a bridal shower for her sister, who's getting married in a couple of months, I think. Sometime soon. I should probably remember that. But, yeah, no, she's at a bridal shower right now. I don't know when she's coming back, and I do want to spend the evening with her if I can. So I'll see what she's up to. I'll give me some lunch, and I'll follow up with a post, just to let anyone who's curious know. I should be doing other stuff, but I'll come back around if I don't get too busy. Cool, cool. I feel like Lucy is a Mary Sue in some aspects. Really? I don't know if I can agree with that. She survives a couple of things I think she shouldn't, like having a fucking necrotic finger attached to her, but that's... God, that is a whole other thing. Lucy's not a Mary Sue in the slightest. Yeah, I don't know. She doesn't... I think the only thing that you could possibly say makes her like a Mary Sue is the fact that a lot of characters gravitate towards her, but I feel like it's pretty obvious why characters actually gravitate towards her, because she's actually very charming and endearing versus, you know, fucking Rey from Star Wars, who is literally just like everyone gravitates to her without knowing a thing about her or even interacting with her, you know? Whereas Lucy, I feel like she actually engages with characters and then they come to like her, which I think is a very crucial difference. But, like, on the surface, if you wanted to say a lot of characters like her, thus that's a trait of Mary Sue, then, like, I guess, but I feel like that's a bit of a reach. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. If she wasn't a high charm build, then I might agree. True. Yeah, no, Lucy got the charisma. She's got like 7 or 8 charisma, I'd say, you know, if we were to mathematize and gamify it a bit. She probably got like 8 points in charisma out of 10, maybe 7. It's not like Lucy's father is involved with Moldaver the scientist, which is what most of the characters were after. Yeah, no, like she plays a pretty big role in the plot. Like Lucy is, for all intents, she is she is the protagonist. Like the show has multiple protagonists, like Cooper, but Lucy, I would say, is like the de facto protagonist, at least of season 1. She might not be for season 2, but definitely for season 1. They got a good actress to play the role. Oh yeah, definitely. Ella Purnell, she's so awesome. I love her. I thought she did a bang up job, and she's done really good in other roles too. I haven't watched too much with her, but like I've seen scenes of her acting in other roles, and I'm like, damn, she's really got a knack for this. I could see her being a prominent actress in a handful of years, for sure. If she wanted to. But yeah, I think I'm going to call it here. It's definitely been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed it. Lots of stuff that I agreed with and lots of stuff I disagree with. I think it's been a very interesting video so far. You know, like I've said before, MauLer's like one of the guys that like inspired me YouTube-wise, like to make longer content, because that's always been content I've gravitated towards, and obviously that's something that he makes a lot of. And I've always thought he has a really good approach to making arguments. I don't think every argument in this video is as solid as some, for sure. But there are some, he does bring up some very good points throughout the critique also. And I can't wait to see what more he has. We'll just have to see how season 2... I think we'll just have to see how season 2 treats them. Yeah. No, I think a very important part of the show is going to be season 2, because like I've said, there's a lot of stuff that just hasn't been expanded upon, and I don't think that's wrong. Like, you can't fit literally every fucking plot detail in a single season, no matter how long a season is. There's always going to be something that's not explained, something that's left open for the future. And I think for the most part, the show did a good job of that. Not with Moldaver, though. Moldaver was way too absent, and for her to die... like, the only way they can expand upon her now is to have more flashbacks, which just... you can't rely on those forever. You can't just consistently keep going back to those, I don't think. So yeah, Moldaver was definitely, like, the weakest link for me as far as the first season was concerned. But, like, Hank, there's a lot left open with him that I think is, like... because they're setting him up as the antagonist. There's no way he's not going to be expanded upon. If they fail to, then yeah, that would be a massive problem. But yeah, a lot of that's up to season 2 to work on. But yeah. Anywho, sorry, I keep on getting into more discussions. I think it's a very interesting show, and I think MauLer's brought up a lot of very interesting points, and you all have too in your comments. I really appreciate it. So yeah, thanks very much. And oh god, another comment. No, I think even Moldaver is dead. Even if Moldaver is dead, or even though Moldaver is dead, excuse me. They can still expand on her in season 2. I think so, because I mean they're going to be expanding upon Hank, so they have to expand upon his conflict with Moldaver, you would think. Anywho, yeah, I'm going to leave it at that. Thanks so much, everybody, for joining in. Really appreciate it, and I hope all of you have a wonderful day. I'll keep you posted on whether or not I'm coming back.